baby. I am so excited to talk about this episode. Hi.
Welcome to Wheel Takes, a podcast that Allie's doing the intro to.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That is a thing I'm doing. Hi. Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to Wheel Takes, a podcast about the Wheel of Time, both the TV show and the books. And then also sometimes other series as well.
Yeah, but we're not here to talk about those.
Shout out to Hunger Games. But we're not here to talk about those. We're here to talk about the Wheel of Time TV show. I'm Allie, and I am a screenwriter and a first-time reader of the Wheel of Time on book 11.
I am Gus. I am an actor, and I have finished the Wheel of Time series of books. And this episode contains spoilers in a few different ways, because it's broken into 3 parts. The first part is the longest part, and it is the part that is only show spoilers. So we're going to try very hard not to touch on anything that is not covered by the show. The second part is spoilers through what Allie has read. That's going to be delineated by a siren. You will know it when you hear it. That is going to be spoilers up through the end of Crossroads of Twilight. And then the third part is going to be full book spoilers, where somebody else, probably Bree, comes and joins me. Bree, who is a writer, and we discuss the full spoiler ramifications and foreshadowings and commentaries and things. And I'm going to strongly suggest that you not skip different sections, because the first section is the longest, and it's the one where we cover the most stuff. What is this? Who is this podcast for, Allie?
This podcast is... What do you mean for?
Is it for people who have not watched the Wheel of Time show yet?
It's definitely not for you. Go watch the show, come back, and then talk to us then.
Yeah. This is a show for anybody who has watched, is watching, is rewatching the Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime. As we both work in the entertainment industry, we like to think we know a couple things about the process of adaptation and the process of visual storytelling. So we are here to sort of discuss the craft, as well as potentially shed some light into why certain changes may have been made from the book to the show.
We also should tell you that we are not in any way affiliated with the show.
That is
this
true.
is just our best guesses.
They sent us a box of stuff, but that's it.
Yeah.
So all of those preliminary things out of the way. Generally, here's what you're going to hear. First, we're going to spend a really fucking long time breaking down what happened in the episode.
Are we?
We are almost certainly going to divide that into plot threads. Usually, those delineate down to what we like to call A plot, B plot, and C plot. The A plot tends to be the story-driven, more story-driven plot. The B plot tends to be the more emotional plot, and the C plot tends to be a thing that was happening along the way. Because of how many characters and how many plots there are, we might add D plots or E plots, or we might combine a couple plots. This is just a way that we like to keep track of the relative significance, I suppose you could say, of any given plot, and perhaps the purpose of that plot in the overall story of the episode, and therefore in the overall story of the season, and therefore in the overall story of the Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime. So, without too much further ado, what's the question of this episode?
The question for this episode, Gus, is essentially, will each of our characters assimilate to or reject their new worlds?
I like it.
Here's what we've got going on. We have, in terms of new worlds, Nynaeve in the accepted test.
Very literally a new world.
Very literally a new world. Will she assimilate to it to her own demise, or will she reject it and live?
Okay.
Will Rand be able to navigate the politics of Kyrian?
Yeah, we get a fun little look at that, don't we?
We sure do. Will Perrin be able to survive the Shan-Chan?
Well, his whole party doesn't. Not all of his party does, I should say.
Right?
Oh, God, what a heartbreaker. This is why Uno's been so funny, by the way.
We're so bummed.
To make it hurt more.
I know. Rip Guy Roberts.
Rip Guy Roberts' character.
I mean, you're still alive.
Yes.
Thank goodness. But Unfortunately, Uno is not.
Fun little behind the scenes fact. We actually know the actor who plays Uno.
Haven't we said this on the podcast before?
Yes, but it was last season. And he's wonderful.
We've known him a long time. He's a great person. And sometimes listens to this.
And no, he didn't tell us anything.
No.
He's extremely good at that. And no, we didn't ask.
No, and in fact, what's funny is that Jess, his wife, plays Jessica Boone.
The woman who commands his execution.
Yeah, the voice.
Alwyn, yeah.
Alwyn, who commands his execution. So we messaged him and we were like, and your own wife.
Mm-hmm.
Brutal stuff.
Heartbreaker.
Yeah, it's and he said some sweet things about loving being on the show.
Yes.
And in terms of the thematic kind of questions of it all, obviously we are still very much in the who's the real monster phase of the theme. That thematic dichotomy being, of course, good versus evil, and us realizing good doesn't necessarily mean great. And evil isn't necessarily bad. It's all very gray.
Yeah. There are good bad guys.
It's actually
there are bad good guys.
Evil and good are kind of a wheel, as it turns out.
Wow. Are you telling me that there are themes?
Layers. Themes. We can go so bad we're actually good, so good we're actually bad.
Unheard
of. Well, we could be doing bad things for good reasons.
We could.
We could be doing what people might think are good things, but they're actually bad things. It's all very, interesting. But also, who are we saving the world for? And how can we not become monsters in that pursuit and lose sight of it?
I love it. And this is the if we are using the structure that we like to look at things with, this is the story turn, right?
Have I not talked about that?
You would not this episode.
Oh. Episode 3 is the story turn episode in which we learn new information that propels us to the midpoint, which is the mini climax of the season. In the mid-season, it's to make sure that the middle doesn't get boring. So we get a little boop in the middle where we think maybe it could be the end and then it's not. So here we go.
Allie, what's our A-plot this week?
So,
because I know you and I discussed
discussed this at length. And at first, my instinct was Tar Valon because it takes up the most screen time.
It does.
And it starts first, which you would go, oh, that's a typical A-plot right there. A typical A-plot with typical A-plot things. But it's more the emotional story beat.
It is. Because that was, you said to me, oh, it's got to be Tar Valon. And I went, that's very character development forward.
So it's a little bit blurry. I think there's an argument to be made for Tar Valon in general, and there's an argument to be made for Rand and Selene being the A-plot.
I am firmly camp Rand, Selene, and Kyrian are the A-plot. I personally think far and away the movement of the story, which is not to say the most important stuff, but the stuff that actively progresses things that are happening in the world is Kyrian.
Now, here's the thing.
The B-plot is bigger and in a lot of ways richer and has more time for the characters to grow and develop. But the plot-related one, I think, is Kyrian.
Here's what I do typically when I'm watching. First, I will watch it with you because we get them and then we watch them immediately. Then I will watch them with like a friend or family member and just listen to their reactions, right? Who has not seen it for, this time. So I'll listen for their reactions to things they thought and liked and all of that stuff. Then I watch it and just do I'm going to write just preliminary notes. And then I watch it a fourth time to do my more in-depth detailed notes.
And that viewing takes like 6 hours.
And that viewing takes I do it while I'm on the bike so that I'm doing something else at the time. And that takes forever. So...
Because you keep pausing and writing.
Because I keep pausing and going, ooh, look at that angle. I bet this is saying this and la-da-da-da-da. And I just do a literary analysis, but I guess film analysis of everything that happens in the episode. And we started talking about this and you started saying this and I was like, fuck, I think you might be right, actually. And then, so I had to do a 5th watch of this episode. And on the 5th watch, I agreed with you.
Oh, hey. Yeah. Cool.
So
That's
I
always fun.
Switched them because I agree with you. I don't think that Tarvalin forwards the plot so much as it forwards the emotional storylines, and Rand and Celine is the plot forwarding plot.
I think also, what we got to remember is that Nynaeve's entire accepted test, the first 2.5 arches, are in the cold open, not in the main body.
That's what fucked me.
Yeah.
A bit in the first watch was I forgot that all of that was just the fucking cold open, which was hilarious because I watched the second time this episode with my friend Jen, who works in film and TV with me. And when this is like how distinctive this episode was we get to the end of the fake third arch and the Wheel of Time logo comes up, and Jen yelled, "Was that just all the fucking cold open?" It
was a long,
and the two of us like cackled because we were like, "What was it like?"
It was 20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah.
Like a third of the episode was cold open.
Unprecedented. Well, not unprecedented, but that is a wildly long cold open.
Yeah, it's uncommon.
Typically, they're like
5, maybe.
No,
or like
not
2 or
even.
3.
Like, I mean, half a page, the conventional wisdom when they're like talking to you about things. And of course, they give you the conventional wisdom, you know what the rules are, and then you break them.
It's like
and if
the
it works,
code
it works.
In Pirates of the Caribbean, it's a guideline.
Yeah, it's like if it works, it works. And then if it's not working, then you know why, because you broke the convention, and the convention is usually better. But not always. In this particular instance, not better, I think.
I love that
they did a really good job breaking the rules here, but that was like a 20-minute cold open when typically, God, they're like 2 minutes max.
I feel like Dark Friend Social was 3.5, but that's also, I guess, the season's cold open.
Well, here's the thing. The typical thing is like half a page to 2 pages. You can get away with 3, but God, nowhere near 5.
Sure, okay.
It's what a lot of people say. 5 and then they're like 5 is an absolute maximum, but usually it's like
not,
3.
You silly thing.
Yeah.
There's no absolute rules in entertainment.
Well, it's just like how people say a scene shouldn't be more than 3 pages. Then that's true most of the time.
Yeah.
That's true.
That is true a lot of the time.
But if something's like motivated.
I mean, it also in TV. We're talking TV, not movies.
We're also talking movies. No longer than 3 minutes. But that you can, like, if you're thinking battle scenes and stuff like that are super long, you'll usually get like different locations and stuff, and that counts as a scene. So like in one location, no more than three pages. Does this make sense?
Really?
Yeah. That
surprises
That's what
me.
people say.
For what? But not for every...
3 minutes is long.
Yeah.
In film and television? In one location?
That's true. No, I suppose that's true. It's usually...
Keep in mind, every time you switch locations, that's a scene.
That's... the more I'm trying to think of a good counterexample, but I can't really pull one up.
Yeah, like if you go back to Command watching or something, that's a scene.
There are... What about, like... I'm thinking of things like A Few Good Men or
okay, Aaron Sorkin breaks like every rule.
No, I know Aaron Sorkin breaks every rule. But I'm just thinking like...
Aaron Sorkin started as a playwright, and it shows.
That's a good point. I just feel like most things that take place in... No, you're right. I think it's usually...
It's usually 3. And they're like, for like long battle scenes, they say 3. Like, typically they're like 1 or 2. Max.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of the time they say as fast as you can without like losing speed. But for those like character buildy breath scenes, they'll say like 3.
So then as a for instance...
Or big action-packed scenes.
In the Battlestar Galactica miniseries, when you have Adama getting ready for the speech, going up to do the speech, doing the speech, and then discussing the speech after he sits down, those are not all one scene.
No.
Great. Okay.
Because what you would do is, so for the getting ready, that would be like interior dressing room, right?
Yeah.
So that, because he's not out in the auditorium. And then you would do interior stage, because that's a different location. And then you would do interior audience.
Sure. So and I'm sorry, I'm just fixated on this, but I want to engage with this.
I mean,
guideline.
Depending, because sometimes you would do just like interior auditorium, and then you just do the whole scene that way. But like usually every time you kind of like move to a new area, you're going to specifically say interior somewhere else or exterior somewhere else, or interior exterior.
There's that one scene of the one episode of Haunting of Hill House where the first 30 minutes are one continuous shot. But even that is panning back and forth between different parts.
Different rooms of the house.
The funeral home, right?
Yeah. And different rooms of the house.
Although that also kind of pushes it.
No, because they're not always in the same room. They'll be in the lobby area. They'll be in the viewing area. They travel around. It's because TV is a visual medium. It relies on things to be constantly moving.
Sure.
So even in like Rope, right, which is a Hitchcock film, that's all done in one take, which if you haven't seen it, you should. Just because it's a really interesting exercise, much like that Haunting of Hill House episode.
Yeah.
But like even then, it's like there are different locations in the whole thing. It's not all just like two people talking in one room, never leaving to another area of that room.
Sure. And again,
at that point, that's theater.
It is theater. And now I'm thinking, we just rewatched a bunch of Kurosawa movies.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sequence in Seven Samurai where the farmers have gone to the city to try to hire samurai. They're like sitting outside, sad and dejected, when the first samurai they hire, who is played by what is his name? Takashi Shimura. He like comes out of the city, and then he kneels down and he cuts off his top knot hair bun thing, and then he dresses up in robes, and then we learn that he's going to try to save a child from a bandit, and then he goes in to the city, and then he goes up to the house, and then he gives the guy food, and then he dives through the door, and then the bandit comes out having been punched in the face by Shimura, and then he comes out with the kid. That's not one scene. Even though that's one long continuous event, it's different vignettes within it. Okay.
Because like the job of the writer is not to direct. This is like the really hard part of writing.
By the way, Seven Samurai is a fucking great movie.
Really weird and blurry lines
tell you that,
sometimes between writer and director, right? And a lot of the kind of conventional wisdom is like writers don't, or the advice that you get is writers don't direct the director and don't act for the actor, right? So you can say like, what are they doing? And of course, obviously, people fuck around with this also, but like you were not going to put the shot list in anymore in a movie that you write, right? Like you wouldn't put in the transition.
Sure.
And you wouldn't go like pan in on blank. The worst thing you can do.
Oh, that's not done anymore.
No, not at all. And it's like considered a kind of bad thing to do because it's making the reader aware of the camera. And what you're trying to do is immerse the reader in the reading experience so that they like the script, so that they want to make it. Sure. And then the director goes in and decides like what the shots are going to look like. You can telegraph, though. There's like a blurry line there where you can telegraph to the director what you want the shots to look like, because it depends on what you focus on. So I could say like, Gus reaches into his pocket and pulls out a lighter. Or I can say, Gus pulls out a lighter.
Or you can say Gus's hand goes into his pocket. A few seconds later, it comes out with holding a lighter.
Right. And all three of those are different shots.
Yeah.
Right?
The first one would be all of me. The second one would be me and probably the surroundings. The third one would probably be close up on my pants pocket.
Right. But I would never say in a script, extreme close up on Gus's hand.
Because I know I've seen that before, but that's old fashioned.
It's old fashioned.
Got it.
People don't do that anymore because what you're really trying to do now is like, because one, directors don't like it because they're like, let me direct my fucking movie, right?
Yeah.
Or my fucking episode. Don't tell me how to do it. I mean, certainly there are like writer directors who still do it because they're like, I'm going to direct it anyway. So why do I care whether or not I'm directing it? Because I'm going to direct it. That happens. But it's now considered to be like the writers overstepping. It's the same thing as like, I would say what their reactions are, not like what the emotion is. So it wouldn't be like, she gets sad. I'd be like, her face crumples.
Which, by the way, stage directions like angry, sad, is like an arrow for an actor, but it doesn't really help.
No, but like saying she gets sad, well, one, it's not that interesting.
Yeah.
But two, it's telegraphing to the actor what kinds of like layers they're going to put onto the scene. And that's annoying to the actor.
Yeah, well, the character doesn't know what kind of movie they're in.
Exactly.
The character doesn't know what scene they're in. The character is ostensibly existing in their day-to-day life that happens to be a tragedy.
Yeah, like I'm writing tactics in for the writers. Yeah. Tactics is this thing. Gus, you want to explain? You're an actor. You know what tactics are.
Tactics is essentially, in any scene when you are acting as an actor, you need to be actively trying to do something, hence actor. You are not a passive or, you are an actor. So you are trying to accomplish something. That something can be, I want to escape. That something can be, I want to make this person stop talking to me. That can also be, I want to dominate this social gathering. A tactic is essentially a verb that an actor uses to help them figure out what track they're going to go on to try to accomplish their goal. Because as an actor, you are not coming into a scene thinking, okay, I need to finish the scene. That's not, if that is what is motivating the character in the scene, that's boring as shit.
Right.
The character comes into the scene, one, from somewhere else. You walk into a room, you walk onto stage, you are not coming from off stage. Yes, literally you, the actor, are coming from off stage, but you better know where your character's coming from.
Yeah, they call it a moment before.
Yeah, because you, as the character, you did not just spawn in, right? Right. You came from somewhere.
Right.
And then you have come to this place, and when you come to this place, there is a thing that you have to accomplish. And usually, yes, you have to accomplish it. Why? Because the writer said so, but the writer said so, therefore you need to figure out a good reason. And you need to figure out how you are going to reach that goal. It's not just going to be, I'm going to say my lines and leave.
Right.
It's going to be, I'm going to say my lines which mean these things, and mean these things to me, and I'm going to say them in such a way as to achieve my stated objective within the scene. And I'm not going to say them sadly, because I, as a human being, do not experience emotions because that is the right thing to do. I experience emotions because a thing happened to me, and then I respond by having an emotion.
Yeah, acting is reacting.
Acting is reacting. And then more often than not, I am not going to be actively trying to be mad or trying to be sad as a human being, because I don't like being sad or mad. I like to usually be kind of content.
Right. And so with being... sorry, you have one more thing.
Yeah, so really, when you see the stage direction sadly, it really means fighting off sadness.
Right.
When you see enraged, that's a little better, but it's either got to be attempting to regain composure or lashing out. It's got to be something you can actively do. It's not just an emotion that you're layering over top of your existence. Anyway, I've been rambling about acting for a while now, but
no. I think it's important for people to think about. And then when I talk about, not acting for you, our job as writers is to think about, as screenwriters, because you're really just kind of like building the body for people to put life into.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a monumental task in itself, but like the big point of it is that you are in a collaborative process. So you're building the body so that someone else can put the breath in and someone else can open the eyes. You can make that easier to do by thinking about tactics in advance and thinking about creating active characters with active wants and the tactics they may use to get those things and why they may want that. Is there a backstory there that may, cause them to want this? And all of that kind of informs then what Gus would layer in with his like real life human experience and his real life human personality. And that's kind of how that works. But I wouldn't telegraph to Gus, you're doing this sadly. I'd be like, Gus's face crumbles.
Yeah.
And Gus would go
that.
on. Because that is something physical Gus can do. And then he can layer in his own
reasons for
why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what makes for interesting stuff.
Anyway, we went on this whole tangent from saying a scene is usually 3 pages long because I fully expect that everybody heard that and went, oh, no way. No fucking way. So I wanted to make sure that we went over some examples of things that seem like they are certainly longer that might not be. And again, if you're thinking of an exception, you're probably right. There probably is.
Yeah.
You're probably right. That
But
probably is an exception.
If there's this, and there are exceptions to every rule, right? They say this so that writers don't deliver a 20-page scene thinking that that's the standard. It's not. The shorter, usually, the better. Like I know as an executive, and every executive I've talked to has said the same thing. When the maximum amount of pages usually that you want to see for a film is 120 pages.
Which is like 2-ish hours.
But if you open your movie, like a submitted script from a writer, and it is actually 120 pages, you want to die.
Why is that?
Because that's 120 fucking pages.
Yeah, it's a lot to read.
What the fuck are they doing for 120 pages? You know, like, I mean, I would say usually things like if you're trying to get an indie made, 120 pages is wild.
Yeah.
That's a wild amount of pages. What are they doing for 120 pages? 90. 90 is the sweet spot usually for like an indie. Or a kid's movie, it's like 60.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then you go, but what about Disney? Disney's a whole fucking thing. Disney's not a fucking indie mom and pop shop, right? No. Like this is not, indie does not equal Disney. Disney might buy your indie if it's good, but indies should not be 120 pages. People do not want to sit through 2 hours of an indie.
Well, we're also discussing here.
But that's general.
We're also discussing here what would commonly be referred to as a blind submission. Right? We're not talking about like...
From an unknown writer.
Yeah, we're not
with
talking
no
about...
actors attached,
Disney,
no director.
Pixar had an idea and they went to their writers and they asked a writer to do a draft. Or they commissioned a draft. That's different.
Yeah.
We're talking about like Gus wrote a script and he sent it to A24. And it was 125 pages long.
And I would open that and go, why the fuck is this 100
And A24 doesn't want to read it. No, it's not to say that you can't make a 2-hour-long indie movie. It's just that...
I will still read it.
Yeah.
And you know what? I have read 120-page movies that do deserve to be 120 pages. Absolutely. Is that usually the case? No. So you better eat that 120. That better be the best 120 ever, you know? But... because it's a tough industry. It's really tough. And and every executive that I've talked to where I go like, oh, I wrote a feature, it's 90 pages, breathes a sigh of relief.
Yes.
Yeah. Just because something can be this amount of pages doesn't mean it should be. And that's a really important distinction. But also then if it's too short, they're like, what the fuck? Why is it so short? Because there's just standards that exist for a reason. Okay.
The dog's snoring. You might hear a little bit of that.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I know everyone minds so much hearing little doggy snores. Yeah, but so who are we saving the world for? What are we doing things for? That's going to be important. So A plot, in short, is Rand, Celine, and Logain. B plot, I think we can start to put this under the Kyrian umbrella. B plot is Tarvalon, or Tarvalon, as the show says.
Whatever, whichever, whatever.
And C plot is Perrin and the Shawshan. So we get to the cold open for the stasis. That kind of is also the stasis.
Yeah, is the test.
Yeah.
Which is a fucking banger. So we're going to talk about the test before anything else because it's the cold open.
Yes.
Right?
Can we?
We
should.
About
the cold open first? Yeah, because it informs everything else that happens.
Pretty much.
So Nynaeve prior to going into the accepted test. It's an unusually long cold open, as I said. So we get kind of this moment before the test where Lyanna says that she couldn't go in the first time, which is straight out of the books.
Yeah, I think like almost all of the dialogue in this
word
part
for word.
Is verbatim from the books.
Yeah, which is great.
There's
a lot of verbatim shit from the books in this.
Big chunks. Yeah.
Yeah. Or homages too.
Nynaeve's accepted test is its own chapter, possibly 2. It's been a minute in The Great Hunt.
Mm-hmm. But Lyanna says...
I should say notably, in the books, Nynaeve spends no time as a novice. She is accepted into the White Tower and immediately goes through the test because she's so strong and older than the typical novice.
Yeah.
It's one thing that I feel like the show hasn't really emphasized too much is that the White Tower, and they might get into this later, but the White Tower in the books is extraordinarily strict about...
Ageist.
Yeah, it's very ageist. They really don't want to let in people over the age of like 18's pushing it, which is kind of strange to me.
Yeah, that is kind of strange to me because, I mean, what about the kids whose parents like won't let them go?
Or the people who don't have the spark. They don't start channeling
right
whether
away.
they want to or not. They can learn.
Mm-hmm. But Liana says she couldn't go in the first time. I think the inclusion of that detail may be important later in the development of her character.
Could be.
I'm kind of interested in that because they spent a beat on it. Because I wonder, what other things does she struggle to face? Also, a rare moment of humanity and understanding from the Aes Sedai as an institution, considering how they act for the rest of this episode.
Yeah.
Liandrin tells Nynaeve not to do this for anyone but herself, even though last episode we saw her pressuring Nynaeve into going in the Arches in order to learn from her.
Yeah, and this is something Rafe talks about in the behind the scenes, if you want to bring that up.
Yeah, he says that the reason that Nynaeve fails is because
In his opinion, is because she does it for Egwene, not for herself. Yeah. Which
I agree with. I think that's going back to Maxim saying you need to find your reason for being here.
Yeah.
And Liandrin basically says that's not going to cut it when it comes to the accepted test. You need to be doing this for yourself. You need to clearly know that you want to do this.
You got to want it.
You got to want it. And Nynaeve doesn't fully want it.
No.
Nynaeve has kind of lost a little bit of her purpose because of what Egwene said in the last episode, and Nynaeve had said when Liandrin showed up at the door, Egwene, I have nothing to say to you. But now I think she's struggling to figure out why she's still there, which is, I think, why the test goes partially wrong.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. This is also significant because Nynaeve, I already said that. Still, Nynaeve can't let go of her desire to protect Egwene, this desire specifically being played on by the Arches each time she enters, her desire to protect people she loves.
Yes.
I can't help but think about the stream metaphor that Nynaeve says about surrendering to the stream when she does the women's circle.
Yeah.
Ritual. That's a big principle that comes with meditation is the surrendering of control, no attachment, no reactivity, and radically accepting the things that come, and to a certain extent, separating your ego from the equation. Something it seems necessary to do when becoming an Aes Sedai, and what the Arches are specifically designed to test.
Yep.
Nynaeve fighting to protect the people she loves when she really can't fully because things are going to happen to them in the apocalypse, and she can't control that, specifically revolving around both Egwene and Lan, is the big reason she ultimately fails her test. She's too attached to her protector role, and that would interfere with her abilities as an Aes Sedai. I
think it's also that you need to, the future Arch especially gives you the thing you want the most, it seems like.
Yeah. She wants for herself, and I talk about this later, but in my notes, but she wants for herself and her friends, for them all to go home and go back to their peaceful lives as planned, separate from all of the dramas of the world. And unfortunately, at the time that they're living in, that is not possible. And the Arches do eventually show her that Hobbiton is going to be touched by the battles to come.
Right.
And does Nynaeve really want to not be prepared for that?
Right.
The stakes introduced in linking adds maybe a subtle additional stake to this initial scene. Also considering, I think so.
Yeah, I get where you're going with this.
Just every time they link, there is that element of risk, regardless of whether or not it seems like it's going to be dangerous. There is just a little bit of an elevated risk.
Sure. I don't think
nothing
this is
could ever happen to you while doing this.
That is true. That is a change in the metaphysics from the books, that in the books, it is literally impossible to burn out while you're linked.
Right. Versus in this, when we're talking about the most powerful channeler ever, in 1,000 years, things are a little bit more unprecedented, and obviously they become increasingly unprecedented as Nynaeve goes through her test.
Yeah.
So while we know nothing ultimately, that is not something to be concerned about. If you're a first time watcher and you don't know what's about to fucking happen, the stakes of linking ever are raised.
Sure, I'd buy that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're coming at this from we know nothing happens to them in this. But I'm like, first time watchers do not. So the stakes are always raised. The dog is wagging his tail. You might hear it. He's sleeping. Also, considering the last time Nynaeve was involved in a scene in which linking happened, this could be loaded.
Okay. Maybe. I don't think they're doing that on purpose.
Well, I mean, her block has come around because of the last time she linked.
That's true.
Doorways in general are a motif we should be paying attention to this episode.
Yeah, doorways and windows.
I really track a lot of that. I put in all caps, she's standing at a door.
Mm-hmm. A lot of thresholds this episode.
As Nynaeve, Matt, Perrin, Egwene, and Rand, really, really good timings considering this is the story turn episode, that we have a lot of like doorways, windows, thresholds, liminal spaces in general.
Mm-hmm. Not like what the internet calls a liminal space, which is like, a creepy looking fucking gymnasium with the chair in it. Like an actual liminal space, which is a transitory space between two things.
Yeah. They all have dramatic moments in doorways. Liminal spaces represent choice or transition. That they are walking through, shutting, or forging for themselves. He's having a happy dream.
The dog is wagging his tail in his sleep. So,
all right, so we get Arch 1.
Arch 1.
Nynaeve is a little girl, which they immediately telegraph in the absence of her braid and the cut of her clothes. The silhouette is so girlish that I immediately said, it's her as a kid, and it's when her parents die.
Yeah, well, and as you pointed out, there's something else that is very clear, that she's a young Two Rivers girl.
Not Two Rivers.
Near the Two Rivers, I guess. She's a young girl,
I said the cut of her clothes, the absence of her braid.
Yeah, her braid. Oh, you already said that?
Yeah.
I just wanted to emphasize that was a big thing that was like, it's different.
Yeah. But yeah, the cut of her clothes is very girlish. It's not accounting for boobs, This is a formative memory for Nynaeve that, in my mind, is a more impactful choice than the one in the books.
Yes, so in the books...
Said respectfully.
At this point, and I'm standing up and trying to get my copy off the... 1 second.
But, last season, there were some people who were like, why would they change Nynaeve's backstory? I think this is a big reason why. Well, the first being her connection with Lan. The second being so that she isn't an angry black woman for no reason. So that it can be grounded, considering they cast a black woman who is into a character who is angry. They need to give her a deeper reason. Otherwise, she becomes a stereotype. And then the third reason, I think, is moments like this, where we can really explore just how rough she's had it and why that might lead to her being so protective over her friends and family. This shaped who Nynaeve is and how her personality formed. From a young age, she tampered with herbs and abilities potentially way beyond her understanding. How interesting, now that she is tampering with her own abilities here in the tower, and some of those powers may be way beyond her understanding. In what other ways could Nynaeve be tampering with things without realizing the dangers? Her father washes her hands and teaches her about the dangers of the herb. Also pay off to the Nynaeve backstory in this moment. Likely folks who were paying attention feel the dread of what's going to happen. We get that dramatic irony mirroring Nynaeve's own internal knowledge of where this scene goes, but we are forced to experience the horror of it with her. It provides clarity as to why she's so angry without playing into the stereotypical angry black woman, because it grounds her anger in something real and painful. I already said that. We also get to understand in this moment why she's so devoted to the Two Rivers, which is about to get real painful in the second arch.
Now, in the book, I think it's important we talk about this.
Wait, I'm not done.
Okay,
I'm not done with my sentence.
Continue.
And to the found family that she has. She's already lost a family once, and she won't do it again.
So there's a couple things which... the whole first arch is completely different from what it is in the book. Mm-hmm. And all of the reasons that Allie just described are, I think, big reasons of why that is the case. In the book, she goes through the first arch, and then she's in like a hedge maze, and she's being chased by one of the Forsaken, who was around at the Eye of the World. It's not Ishamael, it's a different guy. And she is also naked, and that's it. And then she ultimately channels in the arch, which she's not supposed to be able to do in either the book or the show, and she beats the shit out of this guy, and she has to stop herself from murdering him to go through the arch. Mm-hmm. I believe that in the book, and I have the book in front of me, and I'm kind of looking while we talk, I'm fairly sure that she is also just naked for the entire test, which is just kind of like a
she's not at the she's at least not in the Lan one, I think, because she's a queen.
No, she is not naked in the test. What I should say is...
she comes out naked each time, I think.
No, she goes in
She goes in naked
Yeah.
for sure. And she's naked in the Agenor one. I don't think she's
not
naked in the second or
one.
third.
Sorry, let me
Agenor being a Forsaken, I think they're cutting from the show.
Clarify.
So I'm not worried about saying that.
What I meant there was that she has to, in the show, she just takes off her. This is a change that I've noticed that has come up in a couple different ways. Is the show seems to be tending away from just sort of people being naked just cause, or spanking just cause, which are both things that come up more often in the books, and I appreciate that.
I do too.
But
I also think that if we're going to have violence against women in that particular way, which like in the books, it's a lot more like gendered violence, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Or sexual assault implications. I just don't think it's needed.
No.
And if it's not needed, I think it should be cut. If it is not something that like is we are trying specifically to say something here with this, I think it shouldn't happen.
Yes, I agree.
I kind of feel that way also about murder in general on screen. I think there should be a purpose to it.
Yeah, by and large, a character's death should serve a purpose.
Yeah, I think that we should be trying to, especially violent death, I feel like we should be trying to say something with it.
You talking about Uno?
Yeah, I think that was very
extraordinarily purposeful,
decided upon.
And we'll talk about it.
Because I feel like I watch shows with a lot of gratuitous violence, and I'm just kind of like, but why though?
Are we just doing it to do it?
It feels like we're just doing it for the shock value. And after a while, I feel like that honestly gets boring.
Yeah.
I'm like, I will watch shows with a lot of violence, but I'm like, I want that violence to matter.
Yeah.
I want that violence to matter. I want any violence against women, especially in that particular, or any sexual violence, to absolutely matter. And it has to be done carefully and thoughtfully and well, because it's just like we're past the point of, I think we should be past the point of like, let's have it because it's shocking.
Well, that's the 80s, right? 80s films, 80s TV, 80s movies were just, a lot of them were very good, but they also tended to lean very hard into these tropes and trends of gratuitous nudity and, bystanders getting gunned down while the main guy runs away. I'm thinking of Total Recall, I think, is the Arnold movie. And, blood and guts and kind of like exhibitionism almost of violence and people getting assaulted just cause.
I think there's a lot of that too, though, just in like recent stuff.
I agree,
but I just go, why?
I totally agree with you. I just wanted to highlight that I think the 80s were like the heyday of that. I'm not at all suggesting that it's gone. I think Game of Thrones, as has often been brought up, leans really, really hard into shock value murder, shock value assault, shock value gore.
Though,
go ahead.
I've liked House of the Dragon so far.
Yes, I agree with
I know
that.
there was a lot of flack for that one scene in the pilot.
Yeah.
I think that while it was shocking and appalling and upsetting, I think that the extent to which it was upsetting was purposeful.
Yeah, I think
it was purposeful.
So as well.
And so I'm like, regardless of whether or not you agreed with the decision, they did have something to say with doing that. Whereas I think like the stuff that I'm thinking of is like guy comes home and finds his girlfriend chopped up in the freezer.
The literal
and that becomes,
fridging.
The literal fridging, where it becomes almost funny. Where you're like, I mean, fucking why? That's silliness. Like this stuff needs to have some kind of emotional weight. I mean, not fun. It's not funny, but it's like almost becomes cartoonish because you're like, none of this is going to have any consequence or matter or whatever. And I mean this with all due respect. I feel like the accepted test scene in the past for Nynaeve, I thought when I read it would have more of that level of impact. And I don't think ultimately it did.
In the book?
Yeah. Not in a spoilery way. I just think...
No, I know,
I thought that there would be more of an impact to that scene. And I think it just was there as a like, here's something scary that could happen. I think what was smart about what they did here was they showcased violence, but in a way that was directly impactful to the character.
Yeah.
and
Notably,
her story.
In the book...
That's not to say that what happens to Nynaeve in the book isn't scary. It
is scary.
I just think that what was smart about the change is that this is a change that we don't want to waste any precious seconds of TV, right? And so this is something that will continuously be relevant to the character, as opposed to this, which isn't continuously relevant to the character.
Not really.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think by exploring Nynaeve's backstory more, it makes it more weighty. It makes it more relevant. I get more of a reason of why she might want to stay and make this different, whereas in the book, she gets the upper hand on Agenor. She is like, I could find and kill him, which is a good reason to stick around to kill a Forsaken, but it doesn't have the same level of... It's not personalized as much.
Well, also, the minute the Arch appears, she realizes that he's not real.
No, she doesn't.
Oh. Well, we as readers realize that it's not.
Well, it's kind of hinted that it might be, but probably isn't.
Yeah.
Because when she starts channeling, he's like, that's supposed to be impossible.
Oh, sure.
So it's like a non-zero chance that he's real, but also, spoilers for the end of book 1, not really, kind of, he died. So he's dead.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I saw a bunch of people commenting about how much they loved that the father was seen taking care of his child, like washing her hands and knowing about herbs, while the mother was a badass with a bow. I actually loved that choice, and I think it was very much deliberate. We specifically find out Nynaeve's mother is named Elnor, which becomes important later.
Oh, and I wept, and I wept, and I wept. It was beautiful.
Wept and wept and wept. We see them hide Nynaeve in the basement when she wants to do something for them to help. And Bjorn says the lines in the old tongue that Lan once translated for Nynaeve before shutting the trap door on her.
I forgot which button did watch.
It's okay.
Watch which. I tried to say what and which at the same time. It didn't work.
The door now symbolizing the two bad choices, a classic protagonist dilemma that Nynaeve has to choose between. Help her parents and probably die, or stay hidden as they probably die. Even though Lan is not present physically in this, he has an important part to play when it comes to those lines in the old tongue. This also introduces some further questions about Nynaeve's past. Questions always being good in a narrative, because it makes us want to keep consuming said narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Why did these people attack her parents? Were they just general baddies, or was there a bigger reason? Why were her parents seemingly skilled fighters? How did her father know Old Tongue? I think it's likely that these mysteries will be further explained or explored later. I think that's the thing, is there are a lot of questions that are introduced and people want the kind of like immediate satisfaction of knowing the answers. But the questions are being introduced so that you watch and find out.
Hey.
Right? If they just explained everything right off the bat, that's not going to make for a very interesting or compelling narrative. And they're trying to create that sense both for the people who have read the books, because, I mean, you love the books, but if everything's going to be the same, you're not necessarily going to be that interested, actually.
Well, it's just, you could just read the books again.
You could just read the books again and have all the answers and spoil people online and all of that fun stuff. And also for the people who are reading the books, without confusing the people who have not read the books.
Yep.
Sorry, I said people who are reading the books twice. What I mean is people who haven't read the books and people who have. One of Nynaeve's big wounds as a character, right? A lot of the time you'll think about when it comes to your character's past, like, what is their emotional wound? What is something that is informing who they are? We all inside of us have at least one, probably, emotional wound that has informed us as a person.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh, something has happened to me at some point that has changed my perspective, and I, never want to be this, or I want to be this because of this thing that happened, or whatever. I mean, if you witnessed your dog pass away when you were young of something preventable, maybe that made you want to be a vet. It's your origin story. But for Nynaeve, her big wound is that she is someone who likes to save people.
Yes, and protect people.
But she was unable at one point to save her parents.
I think also, and I think this is going to tie in with Nynaeve's character arc generally this season, I think in addition to the linking, I think the fact that she believes Rand to be dead is probably informing her block more than a little bit.
Hugely. Absolutely. Hugely. She failed again.
Yeah.
Yeah. It continuously drives her in every scene. And that's when you know it's a really good wound, is because it continuously comes up in different ways. And it's not in these ways where it's like, oh, I have this wound, you know, where she's going to explain to us each time why this impacts her wound. We know enough about her wound, right? That's why, like, Perrin's wife was a choice that was made so that each time he struggles with violence, you understand intuitively why without him having to go, this reminds me of my wife, right? Same thing. Every time she is struggling because she wants to protect someone or because she wants to save someone, or she is really fascinated by the fact that they're so easily able to save people, and when she goes and sees the Yellow Aja healing people. I mean, all of that stems from this moment. I can't help but think of how it also connects her to Leandrin, who has been pretty focused on what can happen to vulnerable little girls, which I swear is some kind of core wound for her since it keeps coming up.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Gotta be. Nynaeve knows that too well. In this vision, for a moment, she, as an adult, is potentially given the chance to rectify what has probably haunted her whole life. She sat there and listened as her parents died and did nothing. While it's traumatic to see Nynaeve, the adult, experience hearing her mother's dying screams, shout out to actress Melissa James, because that was haunting.
Real good, man. Real good.
Holy shit. Imagine being a little kid sitting there hearing that and unable to do anything. Ugh. That is fucked with me since seeing that episode. It's like, we watched her as an adult experience that, but she was a child.
Mm-hmm. Well, when her dad falls on the floor beam and it's just looking at her.
I thought that was her mother.
I'm pretty sure that was her dad, but I could be wrong.
I thought it was her mother because I could hear her screaming.
I'll have to watch it again.
Yeah. But
you watched it more than me.
I've seen it like 5 times. Every time I thought it was Elnor, but maybe it's Bjorn. But regardless, that freaked me the fuck out. I mean, this is scary in a whole different way. This is like emotionally scarring forever define you, fucked up, scary. And like anyone who is an ounce empathetic and who has been a child before and also knows children would be like, holy fuck, I can't even imagine that. But Nynaeve as an adult could potentially change everything because now she has power. But the arches force her to want the power, not physically like her powers, but she's an adult. Like she's more able to protect herself. She's been training. She, understands weaponry to a certain extent.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I'm looking at it again. It's definitely her mom.
Yeah, it's definitely her mom because she's also screaming.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought that. I was wrong.
No, it's fine. I mean, either way, it's fucking awful.
Yeah.
I can't watch it again. Sorry, Gus is looking at it over there. I can't watch it again because it's freaking traumatizing. I've watched it 5 times. It was traumatizing every time.
Yes.
As powerful as Nynaeve is now, however she might fear it, it can't undo what has already come to pass. And Nynaeve is not a person who can turn her back on people who need her. And yet this is only the first time she's forced to do so in the Arches. The Arches understand her core wounds and will make her face them 3 times.
3 times.
This is because, the Arches understand what might be her reasons for turning her back on the tower. The suffering of others that she loves.
Mm-hmm.
Nynaeve would probably abandon everything related to the tower to go help one of her friends.
Probably.
Yeah, she's a great friend. The appearance of the archway represents a new third bad choice that's introduced. Abandon the entire scenario. Pretty horrific if you ask me. Nynaeve comes out physically wounded by the experience. It's healed by Lyanna, alluding to how the Aes Sedai will fix the physical wounds of the sisters, but their emotional wounds are theirs to bear. And she's told that.
Yeah, man. They could really use a therapy, Aja.
We've
been saying that for a long time.
Really could. Nynaeve goes into the second arch and sees Tam al'Thor dying.
Now, this is almost exactly the same scene as the books.
Very similar. There's a new wisdom.
Yeah.
There's a sickness.
In the books, the wisdom is like deliberately poisoning people, I believe. Whereas in this case, it's like it is a plague of some kind.
Right. Again, the herbs make an appearance.
Yeah, same one, isn't it? Crimson Thorn.
Yeah.
The 3rd time.
Yeah. Nynaeve sees Natty Cawthon has replaced her. Natty is so getting a redemption arc because she comes up so often. Can we just say?
She has now, she's come up.
The actress is also amazing.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing.
I have a whole theory about how this is going to go down that I will share in the spoiler section.
We'll talk about it. Can't talk about it now because it's no spoilers for anything.
Yeah, and I don't know because Natty is very different.
Yes, both the parents, both Natty and Abel Cawthon, are very different from how they are in the books.
Which
we've discussed that.
Like.
Yes.
Because I think it gives Matt a lot more emotional depth, which we'll also talk about. But yeah, I think she's coming up a lot for a reason. I think the fact that she's stepped into the role as Wisdom, whether or not it's true, is showcasing her desire to become a leader in the community and be a force for good. I do. Nynaeve tells Natty that the Aes Sedai can heal this, hearkening back to her one big reason for wanting to be an Aes Sedai,
yep.
But discovers they have not answered calls for help, likely because bigger world events are going on. The brutality of being powerful is that there's only so much that you can do. Nynaeve's whole hostility toward the tower in part revolves around the rejection of the village's old wisdom because of her background. The idea that the Aes Sedai could cruelly neglect Nynaeve's home, the most important place to her because they took her in at a time she was an orphan and became her found family, is theoretically enough for Nynaeve to abandon her post. And the Arches know this, which is why it's particularly challenging. Natty tells Nynaeve the one thing that would hurt Nynaeve most to hear. I'm the one that stayed. This isn't your home anymore. Nynaeve likely feels guilt at abandoning her position, something she was good at and had people who needed her in, and she abandoned those people, and without her, they're suffering. The magnitude of Nynaeve's leadership in the Two Rivers was emphasized by the braiding ceremony. Nynaeve was taken in by this village. They basically saved her, but she likely never forgot that she was an outsider and tried to work her way in as a gesture in the hopes that them needing her would make them fully accept her as one of their own. To be told that in putting yourself first for once, that her sacrifices to this point for them weren't enough, and they in turn have abandoned her after all she's done for them. The love she found was conditional once she failed. That's something that will cut Nynaeve to the core.
Yeah.
She's losing her family twice.
Really, all three of these are just going to make a block worse. I mean, all three of these are just a bad time. Nynaeve has a bad time, which is the point. Yeah. But
Nynaeve still puts aside those feelings to comfort Tam, getting at who she really is as a character, right? Even though they've said, this isn't your home anymore, Nynaeve's response isn't, fuck you, then I'm leaving. She's like, well, then I'm going to do what I can. Still. Tam twists the knife by asking about Rand, another person Nynaeve failed to protect. We talked about him a little bit earlier. She lies to him not out of deceit or cowardice, but because, as angry as she is, she's a nurturer at heart and wants to protect him in these last moments. What good does it do him to know that his son is dead as he's dying? None.
Yep.
Tam tells Nynaeve that her presence is a comfort to him as he dies, and there is that familial love that Nynaeve is looking for. And just in that moment, Nynaeve is forced to abandon that love once again and abandon once again her instinct to protect and comfort the people she loves.
Yep.
The archway symbolically giving her another two bad choices. That comfort is similarly not available to her once she's back in the room with the other Aes Sedai.
Yeah, they just dump more fucking water on her head and tell her to shut the hell up.
They're like, you're cleansed.
Okay, stop talking about it. We don't want to know. We don't want to know. We don't want to know. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
Yeah, we're going to just wash it away as if it never happened. And this brings us to our inciting incident.
A third test?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Inciting incident happening also late.
Like 20 minutes in?
Mm-hmm.
Give or take?
But it still works because it's interesting. In the third arch, this is designed to feel violent and scary without a clear narrative.
Yeah, this is a little different.
Nynaeve is wearing red, potentially for the red Aja.
But weirdly, only a little different.
Weirdly, only a little different.
Because we'll talk about it.
But she's wearing red, potentially maybe an allusion to the red Aja.
Yeah, I felt like Leandrin was trying to fuck with it.
Maybe. And it's clear that whatever she supposedly went through forced her to either let Lan die or kill him.
Yeah, the blood's not hers and all that.
Mm-hmm. But of course, this is a ploy to trick her and us into thinking she's out of the arches when she's still inside. It was hilarious because twice I watched this with a new person who was familiar with the Wheel of Time community. And it took both of them a second. Like, it took them a minute. It was different places both times where they were like, wait, this is fake. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I figured it out the second she was like, I'm leaving.
Yes, I believe so.
I was like, oh, this is fake.
That was the point where I went, well, no, that won't work. I was like,
I feel like even when she just walked out, I was like, this feels wrong.
I was like, you're not going to skip Arch 3. That doesn't make sense unless there's some big reveal later.
But both of the people I watched it with,
not including me?
Not including you. Okay. Both said, oh, the community's going to have a lot to say about this.
Because I was watching it and I was like, okay, they're not doing this.
No.
Because there are changes and then there are changes.
Yeah.
And this is one that is changes. I'm like, yeah, that isn't going to happen.
There are changes where I'm like, I can see the reason behind this and I can understand where this might be going. And there are changes where I'm like,
really? Why? Don't. And yeah.
Kind of like when I was watching The Last of Us behind the scenes and we talked about changes and it was like, if we can do it better, we'll do it. And if it's worse or the same, we won't do it.
Yeah.
And
of course, that being the two people who worked on that,
Craig Mason
one of them, Neil Druckmann, made the game. So he's kind of the authority there.
Well, yeah, their writer's room consisted of, I believe, the two of them.
It wasn't a writer's room.
Yeah.
But had Nynaeve simply turned her back on the Aes Sedai and left as a novice, that's one where I'd go like, no.
I don't see where you're going with this. Some of her hints may be Lyanna's coldness toward her. When before Nynaeve went in, Lyanna showed her some vulnerability by admitting she once couldn't go through. Like, Lyanna's is cold, but she's not cruel.
No.
And her little smile when she's like, the blood's not hers, to me was cruel.
It's a little funky.
Yeah. So I was like, well, that doesn't feel like Lyanna.
Callous.
Even though we don't know Lyanna well, she's not a cruel person because she showed that vulnerability by admitting she couldn't go through. It's a hint. Yeah, I need Gus to verify that the minute she said she couldn't remember what happened, I yelled that she was still in the Arches.
You did.
That's what I said. Nynaeve seizes her own fate by walking out the door and abandoning her sisters because when she went in, she wasn't really sure why she was there.
Right. If she wanted to become an Aes Sedai more than anything else, she would have taken the ring.
Exactly. To trick us and her further, she gets a goodbye scene with Egwene. She tells Egwene that Aes Sedai means servants of all, which is technically how Nynaeve frequently behaves. So her leaving will be something she regrets. Nynaeve's big fear is that she doesn't have what it takes to be an Aes Sedai, and what being one might do to her. Who will it turn her into? But the temptation to... Monsters.
Hey!
But the temptation to return to what she was is ultimately too strong. Another hint at her being in the Arches is the land's slow motion arrival without Alana.
Oh my God, beautiful.
I mean,
Love that. That shot, that was there for the girls.
It made everybody giggle. And there was a reason it seemed goofy. Because it was meant to be goofy. Nynaeve is in her too. And there's a reason why when like the initial final arch happened, everyone was like, what? That was weird.
It was weird.
It was meant to be weird. Nynaeve is in her 2 Rivers Woolens, but she's still in yellow, the color of a healer. So as much as she can try to run from who she is, she can't.
Mm-hmm.
Lan embraces her, by the way, running from who you are. Also a Matt thing, also a Perrin thing, also a Rand thing.
Kind of everybody in this book except
Egwene. Lan embraces her just as the arch shows up. His face predatory as the arch goes away. Did you notice how weird his face is?
No.
Watch it really quickly.
Okay.
Watch how like his face does not seem loving in that moment.
Really?
It feels victorious.
All right, let me look it up. Hang on.
Each time it's bothered me in a good way. He looks all loving and concerned. The arch comes.
He looks concerned.
He's
the
like keeping her from going. And then he embraces her. Wait for the embrace.
They hug.
Look at his face.
He looks like deeply contented, and
to me that does not
wholeheartedly
feel loving.
1000% disagree.
It creeps me out every time.
I absolutely disagree with you. I don't see it.
He looks loving until he doesn't to me.
He looks loving as shit. He closes his eyes and he rests his head on her head.
Yeah, but to me it was more of a like, I have you now.
I fully disagree with you because also later in the arch test, Lan is also a chill dude.
Yeah, he's a chill dude because if he weren't, it would be creepy.
Yeah, I don't know. I
She'd be
see
onto it.
where you're coming from, but I respectfully disagree.
I think it's predatory. But Nynaeve's choice is taken from her in part because she can't bring herself to abandon land now that she's left Egwene. Her going into the archway for Egwene is what leads to her downfall.
Yes.
Leandrin tries to appear neutral to the way events transpired, though all of the Aes Sedai standing there awkwardly was like kind of funny, but also awful.
Yes, both.
And Leandrin tries to appear neutral to the way events transpired as Shiriam mourns the choice they made. This is the second time, it should be noted, in 2 episodes we've seen Shiriam deflect blame toward Leandrin.
Yeah.
The first time being when she's talking to Alana, and she's basically like, don't blame me, Leandrin's making this choice happen. And this time where she's like, you better feel really bad about this. I know I will. Which suggests to me this may be a dynamic to watch going forward, as is Shiriam's kind of deflections of blame on herself.
I see it.
The Aes Sedai are not as cold as they appear. Leandrin throws the vase with the Aes Sedai symbol, an indication of her rage with herself and the tower as a whole. I also laughed to myself at the thought of constantly having to reset that shot. I even made the joke several times where she throws the vase and it's like, cut.
All right, back to 1.
Reset. Where's the PA to clean up the vase?
Back to 1, everybody.
Back to 1.
That is what you say on a film set when you are taking a shot again from the top. You say back to 1 or reset.
Yeah, cut, reset. And then the set PA with the broom comes out to sweep up the shards, and props comes with a new vase. I always think about that shit when there's like broken stuff or things like that where I'm like, ugh, how many times did they do that shot? Oh, I bet they had a mark for where she had to throw it to. Yeah, but I bet they also had a mark that she had to throw it to for safety.
Yeah. And that's like a third of the episode right there.
Right there.
And also the cold open.
Which is why I nearly got tricked like Nynaeve got tricked.
Now, should we talk about book third arch now or book third arch later?
We can talk about book third. Let's talk about book third arch later.
Okay. We're going to talk about book third arch and what is different when we talk about
because I feel like it'll be relevant later.
The button scene.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go to the A plot. But first we're going to break for ads.
Welcome back. Who wants to talk about a horny dragon named Rand, who is actually mostly sad and trying his best? I'm excited to talk about this. I really liked Rand's stuff this episode.
Yeah.
I really liked everything he was doing. I liked everything that goes on between him and Selene.
Yeah.
It's just kind of cool.
So Rand visits Logain.
We pick up right where we left off.
Yeah. Who very quickly makes it clear he knows that Rand is there to learn from him. Is it right where we left off? I assumed it was like a bit later because it's like, when are you going to ask me?
It could be a couple days later, but for all intents and purposes, their relationship hasn't progressed.
Because I feel like in Rand's head, he's like, I'll get to know him. And then like, when the time is right, I'll slowly introduce the question. And Logain's like, I knew who you were because you lit up.
Get it over with.
You lit up like a fucking Christmas tree the minute you walked in.
Do we want to talk about that? And generally the stuff about mechanics and being able to see things versus not being able to see things.
Well, it's established that Logain can see.
Yeah, they're being specific with it. They're being picky with it, and I appreciate that.
And it seems like the little Shan Chan girl can see, which is why they use her to find people.
Yeah, it seems like some of the Damani can, which I kind of like. In the books, and was very briefly a metaphysics change in the books, all women can innately detect other women who can channel, and they can innately detect how strong they are, whether or not they're actively channeling. Men can only detect other men channeling when they are channeling. Mm-hmm. We have changed that. Yeah. It is different. How is it different? We will find out. Mm-hmm. So far, some certain people can detect the power in others, and others can't.
So far, it seems like what they call in the books a talent.
Yeah, it's like a thing that you might be able to do that other people can't do.
I'm assuming that is to make it harder to spot people like the Forsaken.
Yeah, and without being too specific, there are a lot of instances pretty soon in the books where channelers come up with a way to hide the ability to channel. which means, in my opinion, Robert Jordan wrote a rule, and then he went, oh, I don't want that, and he found a way out of it.
Yeah. So I think they're just
we're shortcutting the way out of it.
Yeah, shortcutting the way out of it, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
Logain makes it very clear quickly that Rand is there to learn from him. We now get a look at Logain's continued rage toward the Aes Sedai, and though he understood then that Rand was likely the Dragon Reborn, as he understood the power Nynaeve wields, which, compared to him, was like a blazing sun.
Yes.
He also seems a little bitter Rand just watched the procession when circumstances could have put him in his place. Logain is still a little deluded about being the dragon, either because it helps him deal with the things he's done, or because of the madness, or both, probably both.
I also, by the way, this scene kind of parallels a throwaway conversation, the thing that is discussed much, much later in the books. Much later in the books, Logain references back to this event having happened in when he first saw Rand. And I like that they've put it here.
Yeah. I think... Rand showing up once again to break this illusion is devastating. So, of course, he taunts Rand and makes him get a special kind of wine in exchange for teaching him. Rand runs into an obstacle that perhaps Logain will not be able to or willing to teach him what he knows. So we get obstacles. We also get, who are we doing this for?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Logain's putting himself and his feelings ahead of the greater good in this scene, right?
Yep.
Important. Does that make him a monster? Perhaps. We get a glimpse of a gleeman who is essentially spreading what we later understand to be propaganda designed to send people to their deaths.
Oh, and this guy has on the goofiest looking cloak. And this is also straight out of the books. Straight out of the books. Last season, we saw Tom Merrilin. The inside of his cloak had some patches on it. This is a little more in line with how the Gleeman cloak is described in the books. I am glad, and I think it makes sense that Tom Merrilin, down on his luck in book 1, did not have this coat on.
I also feel like it could be a visual separation between this Gleeman, who seems very much into spreading this propaganda that is leading these people to their deaths and being part of this propaganda machine for the wealthy, and Tom, who's playing in these taverns sad songs about men who can't forget.
Yes.
And seems to be kind of rejecting a lot of this, like, Gleeman veneer and being part of this propaganda machine. Perhaps he's disillusioned with it.
Makes sense to me.
I mean, I don't know. If I were, like, basically sent out to trick people into going to their deaths, I feel like I'd become pretty deluded as well.
That's what...
Or not deluded, disillusion,
yeah. Well, that's what is it? Celine says they're all going to go starve in the blight.
Yeah. Fucking rough. We get a low angle shot of this Gleeman, almost as if it's from a child's perspective.
Oh, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's like a low angle shot in the crowd.
Makes him larger than life.
Making him larger than life. Exactly. This is how the people see him.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Is good. And then we see things from Rand's perspective. This potentially gives Tom's jaded just a little context. Yep, I said that.
This woman gets branded with a fucking horn.
We glimpse the realities of what being the hunter might mean when they're branded while screaming, a glimpse into the fate awaiting them. We hear about the Horn of Valir and understand better now what it is. And it's more after we've seen people looking for it and had it introduced.
Does Celine says, right, what it does? Calls dead heroes back from the grave?
Mm-hmm. Celine is a woman with a sense of humor, one of the people. She's one of the people. A little sexy and a shrewd businesswoman in this scene, all things that point to a woman we like.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody that Rand should be learning from.
Mm-hmm. You know, I gotta say, this episode really makes me want them to get more into sort of, I'm not gonna say anything book related, don't worry, how she can kind of cross class lines here. Because it seems like that's very difficult to do in Kyrian, but she's able to sneak her way into this party. She's able to get these fancy clothes, and yet she lives in the foregate.
Yeah. And we see how shrewd she is. I mean, she says to this guy, give all the heroes a free round.
Yeah.
And then charge them double when they start ordering for their mates.
Yep.
When they start buying rounds for their mates. she's a shrewd businesswoman. She's a woman of the world. And we've seen what happens when Rand is by himself. I mean, he's a sweet sheep herder baby. You know, I've seen people say like, oh, I like, some first time watchers say like, I like Rand's relationship with Celine because it feels more adult. It feels like she's a woman of the world. She's aware of what's going on. She can teach him the like street smarts.
Yeah.
Essentially that like Egwene didn't, you know, and there's nothing knocking Rand and Egwene. It's just
they were both
they might not
very
fit,
young.
or maybe they do, and
you
they
know,
will come back together.
We talked about how there were toxic elements to this relationship. Is it purely toxic?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I think there are elements to it that are concerning, but I don't think it is all bad.
I think what you're bringing up is something important that I think we should clock, which is the flawed mentor.
Yes.
Right? Like Tom, Moraine, Leandrin, Shiriam, Lyanna, like the Alana, Celine. They're all people who are Logain, oh my God, who are mentoring them. They might not be good people.
Yeah.
But they might also just be flawed.
Yeah.
And what's great is it's hard to discern which is which. Like, odds are some of these mentors might not be good people. We can't know for sure which. Not in the world that's as gray as this.
Well, Tom introduces himself by robbing Matt.
Exactly.
And then he's giving him sage advice at the end of the episode.
Leandrin shoves Nynaeve against a wall, and in a scene that I'm convinced is intentionally mirroring that scene, Logain shoves Rand against a wall.
Yeah.
Moraine threatens to kill them.
Yep.
I mean, nobody's like perfect in this. And nobody's perfect amongst the friends. Matt abandoned his friends and is a thief. Perrin killed his wife. I mean, that was not his fault, but still. And is a wolf boy. Rand might go mad.
Mm-hmm.
Nynaeve has baggage and is like super powerful in a way that scares her. And Egwene is hyper ambitious.
Which is not a bad thing.
Which is not a bad thing. Egwene's fine. She just has ambitions that are beyond home.
Well, I think Egwene's
flaw is that she's jealous of Nynaeve.
She's jealous. Yeah, Egwene is jealous. It's not ambition that is being, I think, shown to be the issue with Egwene. I think the issue is
she gets jealous of other people.
Yeah, an attitude where she compares herself too much.
Like, I feel like Egwene is the person where Moraine talked about the dragon and Egwene was like, it's me, isn't it?
It should be me anyway.
It should be me.
Yeah, which most people might feel that way.
I think
if it's special, it should be me.
Some people would feel, I would feel that way.
Right. Even though it might be a very bad thing.
But I feel like the
dragon might be very bad, but it is special.
But it's special, and I want a gold star. I want a gold star. I want to be told that I'm good at things.
Yes.
I want to be exceptional and everyone's favorite.
Yes.
And I want to be liked by everyone. Something that is possible to do is be liked by everyone. Did you know that? It's possible.
Definitely, totally a possible
and
thing.
And to be the best all the time. And that is definitely not a trauma response. So, because you're like, if I can control being the best, nothing bad could happen to me, right? Because I'm the best. No, that's not that. You become quickly deluded. Egwene is me at 20. Egwene and Matt combined are me at 20, which is a confusing combination.
That's funny.
And you go, what a self-destructive sounding combination. And you would be correct. It is a self-destructing sounding combination. We're at the Kyrian Noble Party next with Rand and Celine. Celine's outfit in this is to die for. Can I just give a shout out to the costume designers?
Absolutely fucking fantastic.
Absolutely gorgeous. It feels like, and I think the costume designers encapsulated this, and the set designers did too, some Asian influences melded with pre-revolutionary France.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's the big hair and the wigs and the opulence, but also I felt like the textures of the designs had an Asian influence, and the kind of like way that the dresses were built.
Kyrian in the books is kind of presented as a middling mishmash of elements of French culture and Chinese culture.
And I feel like they nailed it.
I think they really hit that one.
They fucking nailed it with these costumes. They were gorge.
Yeah.
I was like agog. Rand getting letters from the nobles, which is directly a reference to the books.
Yeah, and Rand's coat.
Oh yeah, and Selena's the one that gives him the coat, which
Rand's
to me
coat,
fits.
That is sort of an iconic costume in the book at this point.
And it's awesome.
Now,
the coat is great.
Really, this whole Rand hobnobbing bit is a nod to one of the major things going on with Rand in book 2. And I'm going to get, again, fairly loose with how much I get into this, because Rand's journey plot-wise in book 2 is very different from his plot-wise journey in season 2.
Is it?
His plot journey, not his story
emotional journey.
Not his emotional journey.
Okay, yeah.
His emotional journey in season 2 is a hybrid of his emotional journey in book 2 and book 3.
Sure, but some of the beats are very similar. The inn catching on fire, the
a lot of the beats are
party,
similar.
the letters, Celine.
No. Many of the beats are similar. They're in different orders, and sometimes they serve different explicit purposes.
Sure, but the emotional journey is
very similar, I think, more to book 3 than book 2. But also there's a good deal of book 2. But Rand does spend a lot of time in Cairhien in book 2. And he actually, it's about the same amount of time, I guess, in Cairhien in book 2. But there is this thing with the letters is a nod to a much more lengthy series of letters that he keeps getting and he keeps burning.
And it stresses me out so much.
It's so funny because the more letters he burns, the more letters he gets, which is exactly what Lady Anvers says. Yeah, which is now you'll really have them talking. And I just thought this was such a clever way to sort of make reference to that.
Yeah, it's so great. He just throws it out in the fire.
Now, something that I caught that I'm curious about.
Okay. Yes, tell me.
Unless you had something else you wanted to say.
I have so much I want to say. So you get your thing in first.
It looked to me like one of the people in the cold open of episode 1 was a little person.
Yes.
And Rand gets that invite from Lady so-and-so, Lady Dulaine.
I only know that because I watched this 5 times.
Who is also a little person.
If this show gets renewed for season 4, it's because of me. Watching these episodes 1,000 times a piece.
So I thought it was, I'm keeping my eye on that.
Yes. I think, here's the thing. I think if we are going to have a little person dark friend, which I am totally into, I'm always into little people being given acting opportunities. I think there just needs to be more diversity on screen in general. I think good actors are good actors, so we should just cast good actors. We can't have the only little person representation in the show.
So I am expecting that we will have more little people, which I think is excellent.
Yes, because here's the thing. We can have evil little people. We can have evil people of any race, any gender, any sexual orientation, whatever. But if that is your only representation of a marginalized group, I mean, albinism, right? Like, people in the albino community are like, please stop labeling us as villains. It's not great.
No.
Please stop making this thing we have into a commentary on who we are as people. It's fucked up.
It's a pigment thing. That's
it's fucked up. It's just a pigment thing. It doesn't mean anything about us. Can you have someone with albinism be an evil person? Yeah. You should probably not have that be your only representation. And you should probably make that super nuanced.
I brought this up only because I think that it seems as though that is the who were these people thing is going to be something they will lean into.
Oh yeah. And that's like one of the best parts of the series, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's trying to puzzle things out.
Is trying to puzzle stuff out. So yeah, I think definitely paying attention to who was in that circle is going to be massively important.
So I think that this will not be the only little person that we see. That is, I'm using the right term, right?
Yes, it's little person.
I wanted to be sure.
Listen, if we see more little people, I'm going to really start casting suspicions at Lady Dulaine for surezies. I'm going to be like, And I believe a little person qualifies as just anyone under, I think it's 4'11". Like, it's not very small. Like, I knew people who technically, even though they didn't have like dwarfism or anything like that, technically qualified as little people because they were just short.
That's cool.
So it could just also be a really short person.
It could be. I'm not ruling it out.
Who technically qualifies as a little person.
Yeah.
Anver is the one who kind of breaks everything down. We know that her name is Anver because of the
she says
X-ray.
It.
Oh, and she says, I'm Lady Anver.
Because Celine says, I don't believe I've made your acquaintance, Lady
Anver.
Anver.
And I like how she says it very French sounding.
Very French sounding. There is an Anver in the books.
Is there?
Yes. I'm gonna hold off on saying who she is.
Until the book spoiler section? Or until a spoiler section?
Until the book spoiler section. And also, I want to see if they go anywhere with this.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to hold off on that for now.
Anver is stepping in as another mentor figure. Rand stands in a corner, we should note, the whole time he's at the party, symbolizing his discomfort and that he doesn't feel like he belongs there. Anver informs him amid shots of the nobility celebrating lavishly that the rich don't want to feed any more poor mouths and that the hunt for the horn is a ruse to get rid of peasants, something Rand was fooled by. Rand is still very much a boy from the Two Rivers and is not adept at spotting the political machinations going on around him because it's not what he knows. The experience with Dana last season that showed that just because something is a reminder of home doesn't mean it's safe has not fully translated to a world-wise Rand, which is why Celine might be good for him. That will be an arc that will potentially take time, but he'll have to quickly get wise if he is to be the dragon, because he will be having to deal with people like these. Rand standing out in red amidst the softer color scheme is also purposeful. He doesn't fit in.
Very much not.
Mm-hmm. The color of the folks in the foregate is somewhere he blends in. He wears the same colors. And it's a comforting color, the same dark blue that Moraine often wears. Here he stands uncomfortably out from the crowd, not fitting in visually as well as internally. Celine comes over and Anver says they haven't been introduced. Though Celine is a girl from the foregate, she is comfortable in this environment and in going toe-to-toe with someone of the upper classes, which seems odd.
It is weird. You know, it stands out.
It stands out. Suggesting there might be more to her backstory.
Yeah, it does seem. And she got these fancy fucking
What is she,
clothes.
a disgraced noble? What is she? Moraine talks about being from a fallen house in Kyrian.
Anver doesn't recognize her.
Yeah, that seems significant.
Yeah.
Especially considering she's older, so she probably, has been around the block a bit and knows people. She seems to know everybody else at this party. She says, we haven't been introduced. And Celine says, no, we have not. And then leads Rand away rather than introducing herself. There's some subtext there that should pique the audience's interest. Why doesn't she want to get to know Anver? Is it to make sure they don't get discovered as people from the foregate or something else? What might she be protecting Rand from? Especially considering that she's more streetwise than him. There are so many ways in which Celine seems to be filling Moraine's role in this scene, right down to the fact that she wears blue. And she wears blue constantly in the foregate, which is the color of the foregate, but it's not the color of the nobility. And she's still wearing blue. She's still a mentor figure.
It's kind of white, this dress, isn't it?
It's light blue.
Oh, cool.
So it's blending in with the pastel-y colors, but it's still blue. She's teaching him what he needs to survive in this world. But does that come with a callousness that could lead our boy who gives money to little boys in the street to becoming someone who chuckles at the outrage toward the evils of the wealthy? Time will tell. Celine gives Rand the wine that he needs. Rand is still in a corner in this scene. He's still not comfortable.
He spends most of the scene in a corner.
He spends the whole scene in the corner.
This is not his scene.
She's solving his problems without...
Let me clarify. Not his... this scene is not good for him. I mean, this environment is not his preferred environment.
No. She's solving his problems without needing to know what they are. Because he doesn't explain to her. He says, flirtatiously, I thought you'd like a little mystery or something along those lines. Which she seems to be okay with.
Yeah.
She shows her street smarts that Rand lacks when she chuckles at his outrage about the hunt for the horn. Celine has shown her own shrewd ability to take advantage of the hunt for the horn for her own business in an earlier scene in which she tells someone to, do the free ale and then charge them double. But we've seen our members be shrewd before. Moraine, Tom, Lan, Leandrin, Alana, Varen. And Rand has seen the issues with not being able to keep up with that shrewdness in the world. Jaina being a big example. Celine says that this is the most political city in the world. Everything everyone does is part of some scheme or some game. And she brings up that that's why Lady Anver wanted to talk to him. Again, she's protecting him from his own ignorance. Maybe just because someone looks like they're offering advice and help doesn't make them safe. Rand then questions why she associates with him then.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, don't ask questions you know the answers to, meaning she loves him. That's why. But also, it begs the question. Rand says in response, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked for your help, and leaves. And her response is, but we're having fun. You're going to miss the fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
As she says this, she's out of the corner in the middle of everything and speaking loudly enough for people to hear.
She seems comfortable.
She's comfortable
everywhere.
here. Yep. And in the world of politics. To Rand, what he's just learned was a big deal and made him sick of what he's seeing. To Celine, who is aware of the information already, the fact alone isn't enough to ruin her night. Her callousness is what turns Rand away because despite all he has become, he can't bring himself to be this level of callous to other people's suffering. He can't be this hard.
No.
And we know that because of how we've seen him with Errol and the people of the Foregate. Like, we know that. That's why those scenes were there. So that we could see sweet baby Rand.
I really don't think you can understate the importance, and not importance, but significance and relevance of Rand and Errol.
No, that was one of the most important scenes that they've ever added.
I think. Yeah.
And I talk about this even more later.
Again, in the book, very different arc that Rand is on. He is more closely connected to what Perrin is doing. I think you could go ahead.
I think it's so important that we are seeing, one, the emotional impact of the news that Rand is the dragon on him, right?
Yeah.
And two, who he is now so that we can set him up for where he needs to go.
Yes.
There's a lot of time for Rand to be having these big battles, these big action sequences. But right now we need to see Rand the person, not
Yes.
Rand the dragon.
A shepherd named Rand al'Thor, as it were.
That's what we're seeing. And that's why he's so comfortable in the Foregate. And that's why he stays there. And he stays there in the books too, because he's more comfortable, because these are his people.
Oh, he does, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He stays in the Foregate both times.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
These are his kind of people, Errol and the people of the Foregate. And Celine, being from the Foregate, should be more empathetic to how they're being taken advantage of. But as we've seen with one of the workers in the asylum, being poor doesn't make you automatically empathetic to the suffering of others.
Nope.
On the other hand, Dana was so empathetic, she became a dark friend.
Yep.
So surely there's some balance to be struck between the two.
I love that we keep going back to Dana.
I will, at the end of this show, when the show is finally done, write an essay about why Dana wasn't one of the most important additions to this show.
Mm-hmm.
Dana and Errol, the question of Dana and Errol, I will just write an essay about why those two scenes were some of the most important new scenes. Because sometimes people are like, oh, why were we wasting time on this when like there's all this other stuff that they could have put in instead? Because they're playing the long game.
Well, and Steppen, too.
Okay, fine. The question of Errol, Steppen, and Dana.
Yeah.
Why these characters were added. Why they're important.
Before we get into...
And then another about the transformation of Natty and Abel Coffin.
Before we get into Rand Logain and the spillage of wine, we should probably take a quick ad break. Welcome back.
So Celine says right in the middle of everything, right? She's out of the corner. She is not uncomfortable taking up space. You're going to miss the fireworks. And I fucking love a good transition. So I had to call this one out.
This is a good one.
This is such a good transition.
Transitions are hard as shit.
And you know when you write one and you're like, I fucking nailed that transition.
Mm-hmm.
So Celine says in the middle of everything, right? Because she's obviously comfortable in the space. She's not in the corners. She's in the center. And she says, you're going to miss the fireworks. Cut to the fireworks. Establishing shot of the fireworks right after she says that. Nice transition. In the books, the ruler of Kyrian sets off fireworks to distract the poor so that they don't rebel.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a tactic that he uses.
Yeah, they frequently, and there are these big parties in the Foregate, much like the one in episode 2, where the ruler just dumps money to basically let the poor people get drunk and have fun so they don't rise up. So
it feels very purposeful, given the conversation Rand just had with Celine about distracting people with the horn and like trying to get rid of them, that they also have the fireworks going.
That is very well handled. Yeah, that's very clever.
Close up on a tearful Logain watching the fireworks.
Yeah, this is great.
Likely saddened because they remind him of the power he used to have that he can now only watch. I meant to go back and rewatch the scene between him and the King of Geldan when the two people are talking to him. The two, like, swirly people are talking to him. Do you remember what that conversation was about? Because isn't it implied that he, like, killed his sister or something?
No.
Can you go back on your phone and see what they say?
Yeah, which episode is this? Episode
4.
6, right?
4. It's like a blazing sun.
Of course, like a blazing sun. All right, hold on. Let me pull that up.
I meant to go back and watch it because I feel like that scene informs Logain's mental state now, in part. Because I was kind of thinking about, like, Logain probably had to do a lot of really shitty stuff in order to become who he became and to survive for that long. And then for all of that to be for nothing, which it is right now. I'm not saying whether or not it will be, but for all of that to theoretically be for nothing is rough as fuck.
Okay, I'm watching it and reading the subtitles. He'll betray you just like your parents, just like your sister.
Okay, so it's kind of implied there that he maybe killed his family.
Yeah.
Because they betrayed him. Whether or not they actually betrayed him or not, or if that was the madness talking, is also TBD, right?
I gotta watch season 1 again, man. It's been too long. It's so funny to see the weaves without any coloration.
Yeah.
That's so different.
Well, I mean, I think the weaves were an addition because we're learning more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they wanted to introduce that as a concept when the girls were in the tower so that we could be novices at the same time as they're novices. So that's not too much information at once. So like they were giving us a look at what other people see and then showing us the weaves once they could see them.
Yeah, I liked that.
Or once they could actually experience them. Otherwise, then we have to explain what weaves are, and we have to, you know, and that's all stuff that is stuff that can be punted down the line to a place that's easier to, you know, address it. Okay. But he's tearfully watching the fireworks, and I think he's likely saddened because they remind him of the power he used to have that he can now only watch.
Mm-hmm. Like
the fact that he can see, he still has the talent to see that people can channel, even though he's cut off from the power. So that kind of implies that that talent is like Min's talent. It's not like magic. It's not channeling. It's something else. But that's brutal. Am I wrong? That he can still see that Rand can channel.
Yeah.
But he can't touch it himself.
Yeah, that's rough.
Rough. He used to be able to shoot things like fireworks from his fingertips. And now he just can see them in the sky.
Yep.
That's tough.
Bit of a downgrade, if you ask me.
We hear other people reveling, a reminder of the world he can no longer participate in. Rand asks Logain, how do I stop it? That's his like question that he immediately says. Also noteworthy, Rand is now in his like asylum getup, his like work outfit.
Yeah,
he changed out of that coat
back
as fast as he could. He did not show up in his party outfit. He changed. Logain says it can't be contained and that it will spill out of him. The way this is worded feels very purposefully coded to harken back again to what Shamael said earlier this season about monsters. The monster within Rand can't be contained. Logain at the same time uses the wine that Rand got him as a visual metaphor for this power spilling out of him, wasting what to other people would be appallingly expensive. They can't get that wine at the Foregate. It's fancy.
Yep.
Likely triggering to Rand considering his moment before.
Yeah.
He walks into that having witnessed lavish bullshit while everyone's talking about how do we get rid of the poor people? Let's trick them into dying somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's seeing like the wine that he worked so hard to get being wasted by this guy. And also showcasing that Logain sent Rand on the errand just to mess with him. He's wasting time in the impending apocalypse for petty reasons. Rand says that Logain is mad in anger, right? He throws that in his face. The way he's treating him is far different than his gentleness with Errol. Rand is back in his workman clothes. Oh, I said that. Even if it's after hours, because he got out of his stuff as quickly as he could to make him more comfortable. Logain says that the Aes Sedai made up the madness to poison the world against men so they can castrate us.
Yeah, interesting word choice.
But they know that only the dragon can defeat the Dark One. Though we have seen the madness to be true with our own eyes, we are getting a look at how Logain has talked himself into a different version of events, likely a combination of the madness and a response to the guilt he feels at hurting so many people for nothing, including potentially his own family.
probably his
I
own
mean,
family.
I don't know how he's living with that, right? And he's not even the dragon, so it was all for nothing.
Yep.
Also, the verbiage on this feels super purposeful considering past critiques of the show.
Oh, yeah.
That they're castrating the men on the show.
Well, they wrote this
turning them
before
into
season 1
wimps
aired.
or simps, whatever.
But, yeah, I think it's interesting.
Still, also people's general blame of women and feminism as scapegoats at the moment.
Yeah,
and
true.
always. Rand tells Logain, "You're not the dragon." This has a double after this. This has a double meaning. The literal sense that, yes, he's not the dragon, because obviously
he is literally not, yeah.
But also in a larger sense, the thing the world needs is not
this dude.
Hyper-masculine incel person who disregards human life and precious things, is blind to reality, and blames others for the hurt he caused. The world needs a man like Rand, who feels empathy for the poor and the hurting, who feels discomfort in lavish things and political dealings. That's the real dragon, provided he can survive the cruel world that he's sent to save. Logain shoves Rand violently up against the wall, almost echoing what Leandrin did to Nynaeve in a teaching moment. But in this case, he has to do it physically because his magic is gone. I think that's a purposeful mirror.
I'd agree with that.
Logain says, "I'm the only one who can teach you." And Rand says in response, "You can't. You're sick."
There's a lot of people getting pushed into walls.
Mm-hmm.
Rand pushes Selene into the wall, too.
Oh. I mean, it's a tactic of like, physically threatening somebody.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, if you think about it just metaphorically, it's about like who has the power in that moment. But in the other two, it was Leandrin and Rand that had the power in those moments. Though Selene, I think, was kind of his like equal because she wasn't afraid of him when he did that to her.
Yeah.
Versus this where Logain does that to Rand, and Rand is really the one with the power in the situation because Logain does it out of desperation. Because he says, "You're going to get me out of here. I can feel it.
True, yeah.
I'm the only one who can teach you." And Rand says, "You can't. You're sick."
You're sick.
Rand is rejecting Logain's help because Logain is not going to really be able to teach him what Rand needs to be a good dragon, right? As we've established before. This is right on the heels of Rand rejecting Selene's mentorship as well. Because becoming this interested in playing political games and having power at the expense of reality and real people is sick.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't bother, this is really important, it didn't bother Rand that Logain is mad.
No, well...
Here's why. Errol is mad.
Oh, yeah.
And was still a mentor to Rand.
That's true.
That's not the sickness Rand is talking about.
That's true.
The sickness is Logain's character.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Rand's not bothered by madness. He's bothered by people being shitty. Errol's not a shitty person. He's mad. He's not a shitty person. He's traumatized into madness.
Yeah.
It's Logain's character that is corrupted and that Rand rejects. Logain finishes with, "Maybe, but none of us can hide from what we are," meaning that Rand is just as much of a sick monster as he is.
Mm-hmm. Who are the monsters?
Who are the monsters? Rand walks out the door.
Hey!
Just like he walked out the door at the party in Kyrian, having shut out Logain's teachings. But it brings him right back to needing Selene as he exits through that door, and immediately when we next see him, enters the door to her inn in the next scene.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically just like walking out one door right back to Selene. Because he rejected her teachings, but he still needs her at this time. But he is determined he doesn't maybe not need Logain. So we see Selene at the window looking out as Rand walked in. It's quite possible that Selene saw Rand coming as she was looking out, so she was aware that he was coming.
Now, this whole thing turns out to be a dream.
I know.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that.
And we can talk about why that's significant later.
Mm-hmm.
But Rand is wearing the coat from the party when he'd clearly taken it off at the asylum, our first hint that something may be off. Rand walks toward her, clearly to kiss her, but discordant notes are playing as he does so, which is an auditory cue that something is off.
Mm-hmm.
As he reaches her, she grabs his face and shoved him against the wall, holding him by his throat as he did to her in an earlier scene. The power dynamic between them has shifted, bringing back to mind something she said in the previous scene about how he can't hurt her. Maybe she wasn't just speaking metaphorically.
Mm-hmm.
And she then says, if you ever leave me like that again, I will kill you. As she tilts her head to the side and widens her eyes, a classic actor, unhinged look as the discordant notes crescendo. Something is wrong here, but that doesn't dissuade Rand as the two become passionate. She tells him to leave on the coat, assuming, like she does seeming like she does appreciate the finer things. She then says, "Show me, let go, I'm not afraid of you," in reference to his power, and he complies, freeing himself in that moment and becoming the monster, surrendering to who he is, because Logain says it will leak out of him eventually. But was this a dream?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. But I think we're supposed to feel a little like, is this real? Which means that we can still trust Selene, because this Selene was Rand's dream version.
Yeah.
So Selene's probably not related to this, and this is some kind of like weird Rand assumption land, weird dream feelings. Rand wakes up at first, it almost looks like he's post-coital.
It does. It does kind of feel like I'm calling this the dry dream.
I like that.
Because everything gets very dry and burnt.
And he's still
as a result of it.
He's still in the clothes from the night before, notably not wearing the coat, which she told him to leave on.
Oh, yeah.
So that's our hint that it's a dream. That's our first hint. Well, one of many. He sees that the roof is on fire, and Selene enters yelling for him, clearly having slept in her own room based on her clothes. She's clearly in a nightgown and a robe.
Yes.
So she clearly slept in her own room. And she's coming to save him. Rand, I called it wet channeled. Or something. And now the roof is on fire. Perhaps the monster in him is leaking out, like Logain said. Outside, everyone is screaming, giving Rand, that great feedback on how people are going to respond to him going forward with his powers.
Yeah.
Selene strokes him and says, "Are you all right?" But Rand just says nothing and listens to people's screams.
Yeah, because he's caused suffering.
Inn burn down.
He's caused suffering to the people that he cares about, which is exactly what he's trying to get away from.
That's exactly what he fears.
This is his greatest nightmare. This is one of his greatest nightmares happening. And I want to point out also, I think something that is
not to mention that just because even though he rejected Selene's mentorship in the last scene he was in with her, other than the dream that he had, doesn't mean he doesn't care about her. He absolutely cares about her.
Oh, he surely does.
He's just upset because she is showing callousness toward other people he cares about.
Yes. I want to emphasize something I think the show does here very deliberately. Last season, when Egwene was tied up with the White Cloaks, she has to work very, very hard to channel enough to burn through Perrin's ropes. Mm-hmm. Remember this? She's got her hands tied by her sides, and she can just barely... Egwene just barely is able to channel enough and sneakily enough to singe through Perrin's ropes.
Yeah.
Rand burns down a building in his sleep.
Yeah.
Right? Egwene, this episode, after some training, is able to fill a doorway with flame, very clearly resulting from some effort. Rand burns down a building in his sleep.
Yeah.
Something that I want to emphasize that is being shown by this is the man is quite literally overflowing with power.
Well, he and Nynaeve. I mean, we get to see Egwene and how far she's come in this episode, but we also get to see more of just how powerful Rand and Nynaeve are.
Yeah,
because they do things that are unprecedented power.
Yeah, and I think this lately Rand in particular is extraordinarily strong, and I think this scene goes to show how extraordinarily strong he is while actively trying to avoid it. Yeah.
Oh, I also think it's significant that Logain says to Rand, does he say it in this episode? He says, you're as powerful as me. I can't remember. It's either this episode or next episode. We'll save it for next episode.
Yeah.
But I'm like, Delulu. Okay. So that brings us back to the Tar-Valon plot. Unless you have anything else to say about Rand and Selene, because that's over.
No, I'm good for that, and I think we should take this opportunity to break for ads.
Discuss the B-plot.
Yay, B-plots.
Yay, B-plot.
So then the B-plot is the whole tower and also Nynaeve's third test, right?
Yeah. So we get the B-plot in the cold open. So obviously we've already talked about the cold open for an hour.
Admittedly, it was kind of a big deal.
So we don't see the tower plot line again until the midpoint of the episode. So the midpoint, for those of you who don't remember, is like pretty much exactly halfway through the episode.
It's the point that is the mid.
It is the midpoint.
It is the middle point.
Yeah. And just for those of you who don't remember, it's basically the mini climax in the overall episode. So this is the moment we're dreading for the episode's entirety. Egwene finding out about Nynaeve.
Yes.
Elaine and Egwene are walking down the hall, and Egwene tells Elaine to weave them a hangover cure. I just like this little detail.
It's so funny.
And Elaine says that as the innkeeper's daughter, she should know how to handle her liquor.
It's so funny.
Such a cute little moment between them that's meant to showcase their friendship and expand their closeness, as is their similar hairstyles and clothing. So Egwene has gotten rid of the braid at this point, and she and Elaine have very similar hairstyles. So that's showing a couple things. One, that their closeness as friends, right? They literally wear the same hairstyle. And two, that she is moving away from Nynaeve and the Two Rivers as a whole, becoming potentially more worldly, bumping elbows with the daughter heir of Andor, becoming somebody who has left her small town behind in a way that Nynaeve hasn't.
Right. Nynaeve is still very much braided, and Egwene is not.
So this is right before, right? We're seeing this kind of moving away from Nynaeve on Egwene's part, right before Egwene suffers the loss of her friend, taking it out on Elaine, likely because she feels guilty for having prioritized her friendship with Elaine lately over Nynaeve. Egwene knocks on Nynaeve's door to increase our dread for what she's about to find out. Right? We see them walking down the hall and knocking on Nynaeve's door. A lot of the time, that is stuff that would be skipped, and we'd just jump to them walking in.
Mm-hmm.
But this is put in specifically to highlight our dread of what's about to happen and emphasize the friendship of Elaine and Egwene right before Egwene basically rejects Elaine's friendship because of her guilt over Nynaeve's death.
Yeah, and grief.
Death in quotations.
I also like that Egwene uses like a nickname for Nynaeve.
Mm-hmm.
She knocks the door and goes, "Nye, it's me."
Yeah.
Which
to showcase their closeness.
Yeah.
Right before we see her having to deal with her friend's supposed death. She's also standing under the door's archway at the time, and that door's archway doesn't look unlike the stone archways, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, sure. Yeah, all right, yeah.
Upon entering, she finds Shiriam, who does turn to look at her, right? We've talked about the importance of turning to look at somebody versus not turning, and how back being turned to someone is a very powerful position to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So they purposely start her in a power position, right? Turned away from her, dealing with Nynaeve's things. And then Egwene enters, and she does turn to look at Egwene, but doesn't fully stop what she's doing to offer comfort. And that, I think, is really important in terms of the power structure that's happening here and the inability to provide comfort both to Nynaeve at the beginning that we've seen and to Egwene now.
And kind of not only inability, but sort of unwillingness.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's all this stuff when she's doing her test of like, your fears are your own, your troubles are your own.
Yeah.
And now she just goes like, yep, she's gone. Cope.
There is no therapy
I'm
provided.
Out. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Cry about it if you want to, if that'll help.
Yeah, and she wasn't being cruel. She
No.
says, even from the beginning, that she respects Egwene, so she's going to be blunt with her about what's going on and direct. But, it's still cruelty.
And she even says, it wasn't how I intended for you to find out. So,
Right.
Clearly there had been a plan in place to
Address
soften
this.
the blow a little bit, but it didn't pan out.
Yeah, but there was no blow softening here at all. And I don't really imagine that the way they would have handled it would have been any better.
No, I don't think so.
I think probably we saw just about as warm as they're going to be towards somebody who's grieving. And it's not necessarily the fault of the institution, right? They're basically designed to be this way. They're supposed to be this way. So that's what makes relationships like Swan and Moraine so precious, is that they're in a place that's kind of designed to kill that kind of affection.
Mm-hmm. I think this is also makes me think of something in the books, which is how, and I'll get to how this is relevant, but in the books, when they talk about stilling and being stilled and having the power taken from you, if you're an Aes Sedai and that happens to you, generally you never really talk to another Aes Sedai again, and the rest of the Aes Sedai pretend you don't exist, because Aes Sedai don't like to confront that. They don't like to address that thing that can happen to you, and they don't like to think about it too much. And similarly, in the prequel novel, there are instances where characters go through the arches and don't come out. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like, yep, we're going to take one day off and deal with that, and then we're going to keep going.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's necessarily, the most emotionally healthy thing to do.
No.
But it does also, I think, tie in with that element of like, this is a shitty thing that happens. We don't want to think about it. We're just going to keep on moving through it.
But I think it also reflects how historically we've dealt with, as a culture in America, our collective traumas and our individual traumas. I don't think that there is a lot of space in our culture, and there's a lot of discomfort toward grief.
Oh God, America. Yeah. I think Westerners are by and large pretty bad at grief.
Yeah. We really are really bad at it. We're really bad at handling emotions well. I think that's starting to change culturally.
Yeah.
For all that, we studied in a couple different countries at different points. We had the opportunity, and there was a lot of discussion with some folks about how Americans are very expressive when it comes to their emotions, and sometimes in a way that can be off-putting. Mm-hmm. But I think that it's one of those things where we're like, okay, but you're going to express that, and then we're going to be like, all right, so you expressed it, so now we're just going to move on.
Out. We're going to pretend it didn't happen.
It's great.
And if you need
done.
to have an emotion, go do it in a quiet, private, dark room and tell everyone you're okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing is it seems that most of the time, the only acceptable answer to, oh my God, how are you doing? Is, I'm doing okay. I'm working through it.
Fine.
When the reality is often like, I'm terrible. I'm shattered. I'm having a horrible time. But it seems like the accepted social contract thing is like, don't burden other people, burden in massive air quotes, with what you're going through.
Right. Well, I just had a conversation with a friend where she asked me a question about something, and I was honest with her about something I was struggling with. And then I felt immediately like I had to apologize for doing that, that I unloaded on her. And she goes, we're friends. You're allowed to tell me things that you're struggling with. You know that, right? But you just don't feel that way all the time. Sometimes you're kind of like, I don't want to be, especially when you are neurodivergent, you don't always really understand the rules of what is acceptable and what isn't in terms of expressing yourself with people. And so sometimes you're really worried, at least with me with ADHD, about being too much, and being too honest and too upfront about things, because some people do get really off put by that.
And I want to point out, by the way, how well Elaine navigates Egwene's grief.
She does.
She handles it like really, she recognizes this, it seems to me.
Well, I'm not sure how much we can share about this. Part of this might be a spoiler conversation. So
okay, we can come back to it.
But the way that she handles Egwene's emotions is really strong. And I think we may be getting a sense that Elaine, sorry, I get them mixed up.
Yeah, and it's just the meanest thing Robert Jordan ever did was put Elaine and Egwene in plots together.
Right. Elaine, we may be getting a sense that Elaine is a very emotionally intelligent person.
Yeah.
And a rather diplomatic person, because I think she likely understands that Egwene is acting this way out of anger and grief. But for all the Aes Sedai profess to be sisters, there is certainly not a lot of sisterly warmth here. I think it's likely they picked Shiriam to deliver this news to Egwene for two reasons. Oh, well, they didn't pick her, but I think people overall, not the Aes Sedai, the powers that be that made the show, picked Shiriam specifically to deliver this news for two reasons. First, because she's the mistress of novices.
Yeah, so ostensibly it's her job.
Makes sense that she would be the person cleaning up Nynaeve's things, that she would be present there. And second, because as a blue Aja, the comforting color we associate with Moiraine's protection is being used against us in this woman who provides no comfort to Egwene.
Yeah.
Elaine does some great acting. Oh, shout out to Kira Coveney for some amazing acting behind Egwene in this scene, because she understands quicker than Egwene what Nynaeve not coming out of the arches means, but clearly doesn't want to be the one to elucidate matters. So you like watch Keira Coveney in the background.
So good.
This is my favorite thing is
so
the actors
good.
acting in the background because they're not necessarily meant to be watched, but sometimes you'll see somebody who is not the focus of a scene acting their ass off behind somebody who is the focus. She's killing it in the background because you see the moment she realizes what this means, and then the moment she decides not to say anything to make Egwene understand that Egwene needs to process this on her own. Egwene grabs Nynaeve's wisdom belt from Shiriam, which has been Nynaeve's one connection to home besides her braid. Over-the-shoulder shots and close-ups in the scene are used to make us feel simultaneously like voyeurs in this moment and also give us that discomfort of seeing pain up close and personal. We don't really love... It's uncomfortable to be in someone's face when they're experiencing a big emotion, and they use a lot of close-ups of Egwene in this scene to really trap us in this feeling of this inescapable grief. And that's coupled with Egwene's protestations. Our inability to escape the situation is coupled with Egwene's protestations that can't be true. Right? So we are not escaping it. Neither is she, despite her best efforts.
Well, you know, it's also, I don't know if I would call this dramatic irony, but we know that Nynaeve is gone, but still existing. Right? So, like, if the world that Nynaeve was in had faded away with the door, it'd be another matter. But we know that while there is no historical precedent for somebody returning, Nynaeve is clearly still alive in some sense.
Right.
So while Egwene is being told there is no hope, give up, don't try,
we know that they're wrong.
We know that there might be.
Yeah, that they might be wrong. And so that's meant to kind of like heighten our, one, identifying with Egwene, but two, our desperation of like, there's nothing worse than that feeling of us knowing something that the characters don't. It's that dramatic irony that we have here that they're playing on because one, we felt the dramatic irony of her walking up to Nynaeve's door and us knowing that she was going to be getting this bad news. But two, understanding that on top of everything else, her getting this bad news is preventing her potentially from saving Nynaeve from whatever situation that Nynaeve is in.
Yeah. Now, this may or may not be a good time to discuss the fact that in the book, none of this happens.
We don't see it.
We don't.
Right.
Yeah. So the
Oh, yeah.
Nine in the book, and I'll be kind of vague. Nynaeve's third arch does involve her missing the boat, as it were, but then she just sort of summons the boat back, much like how she does at the end of the episode. She uses the power within the arches, which she is not supposed to be able to do. Notably, she also does that in her first arch, and then even though the arch appears and then disappears, she wills it back into place and leaves a different scenario where she's married to Lan, but it's still a future scenario where she's married to Lan.
Right.
And there's none of this time spent with Egwene in grief. There's no time spent. Nobody believes that Nynaeve has gone missing at all. There is none of this sort of interim stuff. And I have seen complaints online that this is I'm using air quotes, yet another fake out death, which I disagree with because she's notably not dead.
Well, we know she's not.
We know she's not dead. Yeah. I also don't really have an issue with the concept of a fake out death because I don't really consider this or many other things one. I
think for me, it's less about the device of a fake out death or a cliffhanger or, you know, those things that I think have become irksome to people because they've been used to a point where it feels like a cheap trick.
Yeah.
To get people to feel things. I think it's the why that matters to me more than anything.
Yeah.
Why are they doing this? I don't necessarily think that this counts as a fake out death because we know she's alive. And so it's more about the dramatic irony of us knowing that she's alive and feeling stressed about the fact that nobody else seems to think so.
Yeah.
Just like Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, we know that she's still alive, but Romeo doesn't.
Yeah.
And then what happens as a result of Romeo not knowing that she's alive is the problem, not the is she alive or not. It's the question of what is he going to do thinking that the woman that he loves is dead. Similar thing here with Egwene. What is she going to do when we know that the person that she cares about needs rescuing potentially and could be in a really nefarious situation. What is she going to do with this information? Is she going to believe them like everyone wants her to and cave into everybody's expectations? Or is she going to do what we want her to do, which is try to save her friend?
And this whole the idea that this plot line is superfluous or doesn't matter because, well, at the end of the day, she's back anyway, ignores the journey the characters go on.
Right. And that's the why. It's the emotional ramifications of what this experience is going to do to her long term.
Yeah. And that's another reason why this is the B plot and not the A plot, is it's a deeply emotionally driven plot. At the end of the day, what happens in this plot is she goes in, she doesn't come out, Egwene has a bad time, she comes out. So in terms of plot advancement, yeah, it's not, colossal, but in terms of what it does to the characters, Nynaeve lives an entire life.
Right. She has an entire child.
Yeah, she has a whole ass child.
That she's now lost and is not real.
Yeah, she once again fails to protect people.
Right.
Right? She once again sees what the Aes Sedai are capable of inflicting on people. And what because this whole thing was also brought about by use of the power in some ways. I see that this could also make her block worse. It pushes harder into Egwene's relationship with Nynaeve, which, kind of an important relationship between characters, in my opinion. It adds another dimension to Egwene and Elaine's relationship, a significant dimension to Egwene and Elaine's relationship, because it's the first time their friendship is tested, and really quite brutally tested, I think, because up until this point, it's mostly fun and games. It's a fairly lighthearted relationship. And suddenly it's like, hey, well, your friend's dead, and you're yelling at me, but I'm going to come back to you. Yeah. Because I care about you, and I'm going to give you the space that you need to grieve and deal with these things.
Right. Like I don't really consider a friend with a capital F until we have gone through something together. I think it's very easy up until that point to love someone until you reach either a disagreement or go through a trial. And then I think that's when real friends reveal themselves, and when more fair weather friendships tend to fall apart. It tests your compatibility as people and your willingness to be there for them.
Yeah.
When there are other options available to you, so I definitely feel like, that the measure of friendship comes when you face adversity and you get to see really who people are in those instances. And I think we get to see who Elaine is in this moment. We get to see that she is someone who is emotionally intelligent, mature, and wants to be there for Egwene. Egwene rejects her help, right? Which is her right to do.
Yeah.
And that is largely because of the guilt that she feels that she has not replaced Nynaeve, of course, but grown a little bit apart from Nynaeve and grown closer with Elaine in these moments. Because she is growing as a person, she's not as attached to her hometown as her friend. And so she's, exploring other options because she's growing up. They're growing a little bit apart because they need to. But in addition to that, it also showcases to Nynaeve, despite how much she may want to walk away from all of this and take everybody home and live that happy life in the country where she feels she belongs, she can't, because Hobbiton is not going to stay safe when all of this is going down. And like Shiriam said in 1 or 2 episodes ago, don't we want her at our side when the shadow comes? Don't we want that woman who has all this power to be fighting with us? So that's, I think, why this moment, whether or not it worked for you, was there.
Yeah, it not to mention that it deepens Nynaeve's resentment to the tower, right? The tower gave her this fantasy and then took it away.
Well, I mean,
right? It deepens Egwene's relationship with the tower. Yeah.
Can I piggyback on that?
Of course.
Not only it potentially gives her this furthered conflict with the tower, but at the same time, she is now at a place where she cannot leave it.
Yeah. Now she's locked in.
Now she has her reason for staying, which is, if I don't stay, my hometown will be overrun and everyone I love will die. So I have to stay, even though what they have done to me was deeply traumatic and something I don't ever want to inflict on other people and experience, because she's a person that's a caretaker, not someone who wants to put people through trauma.
And I think also it's a moment for Egwene. I mean, her thing at the beginning of this season was sort of, if I'd been there for Rand, maybe things would have gone differently. Lo and behold, she spent the first two episodes with Elaine because she was...
And distancing herself from Nynaeve.
Yeah, because she was bitter at Nynaeve for various reasons that are, some are, petty and some are more understandable, perhaps. Not that they're not all understandable, but some are more sympathetic, perhaps. And suddenly Nynaeve is also gone. So we're just going to take that core wound that Egwene picked up, and we're going to just dig that spoon in there a little bit more.
Exactly. It's finding those moments of... It's finding those bruises on your character and just poking at them.
Yes. And it's funny to me because I feel like a lot of the moments that are not necessarily strictly from the books that are added, that sometimes people go, why did we do this when we could have done X, Y, and Z other thing? They exist to deepen the existing facets of the character, I think. And in a book series that is 4.4 million words, many of which are spent with characters, among other things, going dress shopping and talking about the weather. And I'm not criticizing that in this breath. I am saying those are things that share their perspectives on the world and on life and help us get to know them better. If we can instead get to know them better while they're having a terrible fucking time and doing things that will very heavily emphasize their future actions and future behaviors and future lives, why ever not?
Well, it's about making sure, because in screenwriting, because you get so little time, it's about making sure that things are accomplishing multiple things at once, that scenes are giving us insight into a character while also forwarding the plot. And not every scene does have to be a plot forwarding moment, but it should at least be an emotionally forwarding moment. We have to make sure that scenes are accomplishing more than one thing as often as possible, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because every word in screenwriting is precious.
Yes.
Every second is precious.
And if you want an example of what I would consider a fake out death, I'm not going to name the total specifics, but there is a zombie show where a character pretty explicitly dies on screen and is later shown to have actually hidden under a dumpster. That's a fake out death.
Yeah.
This is not.
Yeah, because I don't think there's ever a moment where we actually believe that Nynaeve could be dead.
There are moments where we wonder, oh shit,
worry.
Is she not coming back?
Yeah.
But she exists still. And we know that this is a world with reincarnation, so things always come back.
But on the realm of we've talked about how in this episode we're having characters discover new worlds and new identities in this episode, kind of finding out things about themselves that they didn't know. This is Egwene having to face a world without Nynaeve.
It ain't great.
Which has never been something, that's never been something that she's had to experience.
Mm-hmm. Let's pop out for ads real quick, and then we'll keep her moving. Welcome back.
Okay, keeping it rolling. Shiriam says, and I said this earlier, but I wrote down the line because I think this is a really important point. I will speak bluntly, not out of cruelty, but out of respect for you. Egwene has wanted respect this whole time, and she's finally gotten it in the most horrific way.
Ooh, that's good.
The only reason she feels like she doesn't get the respect that she deserves, right, is Nynaeve. Nynaeve is an obstacle to her at this point, and a frustration point. But now that Nynaeve has been removed as an obstacle and she's suddenly getting respect from Shiriam, it's one of those be careful what you wish for moments.
Yep.
And Shiriam says, the loss is going to shake you perhaps more than anyone. Egwene in her mind has lost both her boyfriend and best friend in 1 year. Oh, we talked about this. And now there's no one there to comfort her like Nynaeve did over Rand's death. In quotations. Elaine tries,
Elaine, but yeah.
Yeah, Elaine tries to be that same support, but she's not close enough to Egwene to earn that yet. Egwene says, I don't even know you. I don't want you here. This isn't something she means. It's pain talking, which we saw building in a close-up on Egwene's emotion as Elaine speaks off screen, because she, in that moment, is an intrusion, right? We see not Elaine speaking, but we are in a close-up shot on Egwene processing her emotions. And so Elaine's continued speaking, even though what she's saying is the comfort that Egwene deserves and needs, is intrusive, because Elaine is kind of a stranger for as much as they have grown close.
Well, they've known each other for, I don't know, a month maybe?
Right.
Probably not even that.
Elaine's hurt over Egwene's rejection made me think back to Elaine's comment about knowing what jealousy looks like. Is it possible the daughter heir doesn't have many friends?
Seems likely.
Alone, Egwene falls to the floor, crying in the shadow of the door she just closed on Elaine. Choices everywhere.
You forgot to talk about the window, Shiriam's window. Did you talk about Shiriam's window?
What about Shiriam's window?
When we watched it, you paused and were agog over the light streaming in through the windows versus the darkness and all.
I talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. I think I might get at this a little bit right here. So
we're on the same wavelength. I keep on preempting.
No, I love
sorry.
it. I love that we're on the same wavelength, even though it's been a second since we, talked about this episode.
Yes,
but
we did actually break mid-recording.
A door is a liminal space representing choice. Egwene makes the choice to kick Elaine out and deal with her suffering alone, right? And we've talked about the emphasis on choices that keep happening, what our choices mean, what we are in our choices. Does that make us monsters? Does it not? And she cradles Nynaeve's belt as she falls to the floor in the one speck of shadow that is in this brightly lit room, as if she's given up hope.
Gorgeous.
Right? We don't have to hear that she agrees that Nynaeve is dead necessarily. We don't have to see that. It's that fear that she has because she is in this shadow that's overtaking her in an otherwise well-lit room. So, oh, yes. I talked about Shiriam's window because I thought it was really interesting that we get this character standing there looking out the window, right? This window that's, shining light on them. And then we immediately cut to Liandrin in pretty much the same
Looking
pose.
out a different window, yeah.
Yeah, it's pairing them together, which I think is really interesting and we may want to clock going forward. I'm not sure what that means, but I think it's really interesting that the two of them are adopting similar places in Matt versus Egwene's lives.
I would agree with a lot of that.
Yeah.
And that's the next scene, right?
That's the
that's also B
plot
plot because we're counting by location right now.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's really interesting to clock just light versus shadow when that is such a integral thematic thing in the series, the light versus the shadow, like who is in light, who is in shadow, and when. And I just think it's interesting that we see these two women who are both processing the fact that they basically set Nynaeve up for failure in their minds, staring out the window at the light that is shining on them but is inaccessible and barred from them. I think that's a really interesting thing to think about, in addition to them just adopting power poses in these moments. Okay. Lotta Liandrin, we'll get to her. Oh, wait. No, Liandrin.
Liandrin's now,
the tower. So this is now. So yeah, we move to Liandrin. As Matt wakes up and makes a quip about her watching him sleep, again, we love funny people.
Fucking guy is hilarious.
Liandrin's face is half in shadow.
And again, I just want to say, I love Donald Finn.
I do too. He's great. But Liandrin's face is half in shadow. There's a darkness that she feels that she's about to let out. Just as Egwene takes her guilt out on Elaine, Liandrin takes hers out on Matt. Neither of their griefs are their own, unlike what Shiriam said, right? They are taking them out on other people.
Mm-hmm.
Liandrin is wearing the belt that she wore that tied her to Nynaeve in a previous episode visually. When Liandrin informs Matt that they lost a sister, there's all kinds of dramatic irony in the scene because we know that Matt knows her. We know that Liandrin knows that Matt knows her. We know that Liandrin is making the conscious choice not to tell Matt that Nynaeve is the one who died.
Yes. Because I think if she told him it was Nynaeve, he would go to Egwene.
Right. I don't think she wants them back together.
Well, based on the end of this episode with her mysterious conversation with Min, it seems as though she actively does not want that.
Yeah, this was the plot. Matt assumes that the sister who died was very old. We know she tragically wasn't, which twists the knife for Liandrin unintentionally, as because of her, Nynaeve will never grow old. All right? Matt, in his innocence and a misunderstanding of the situation, hurts Liandrin further. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something we also should clock, is how misinformation or misunderstandings cause characters to feel more pain and for things to get worse. Because I think part of Leandrin's outburst toward Matt is these little twists of the knife that he's giving her that he's not even aware that he's doing.
Yeah, because she is, fairly cruel.
Very.
Very cruel at the end of this.
Yeah. I mean, she basically takes advantage of everything that Matt has already been deeply insecure about and deeply concerned about in terms of his character.
Even harder.
And just throws it in his face. But that's also got a sting that because of Leandrin, Nynaeve is dead, considering Leandrin's chip on her shoulder about protecting little girls.
Little bit.
Though 25 is obviously not a little girl, to an Aes Sedai it pretty much is, considering the longevity she could have had.
Oh, hundreds of years.
Leandrin tells him the door is open and he's free to go, right? Again, presenting choices through the form of a door, but goes immediately back to contemplating the window, as if there's some hope there that she's barred from. Leandrin tells Matt to find Egwene because if there's one thing she needs more than ever, it's a friend. We know that even though Egwene has Elaine, there isn't a replacement for the friends she's known from home, and so does Leandrin. Leandrin's guilt at depriving Egwene of a friend makes her set Matt free. It's also what unleashes her cruelty. Just as it did in the scene with Nynaeve last episode, Leandrin had left the door open for Matt. He's free to go. This is a choice for both of them. We get to then hear Leandrin's guilt said aloud that Nynaeve was ill-prepared and needed Leandrin's help, again with the little girls in need of saving. But for the past 5 months, I've been wasting my time with Moraine's little secret. Moraine might have seen something in you, light, darkness. There we go, thematic things. Once again, who is the monster? And she says, importance. But I see nothing. You're not dangerous. You're an insidious coward who mistakes his own moral failings for cunning and wit. A stupid, desperate boy who wallows in self-pity, blaming his friends for leaving him. I know you, Matt Cawthon. I know you may not know, though you may not know yourself, you left them, and you do it again. So go, find Egwene if she'll see you, or run home, or starve in the blight. It doesn't matter to me. Just spare me the misery of your company. It's already cost too many people their lives. Damn. How to punch at 2 characters' core wounds for 500, Alex.
Starve in the blight is such a cruel thing to tell someone to do.
Let's clock how often people are telling Matt Cawthon that they know him at a time when he's unsure if he's good or bad. It's playing on his fears.
Yes.
I just want to buy a cameo from Kate Fleetwood in which she accurately dresses me down and devastates my soul. It's just another
So much of Twitter says they want that. Says they want Kate Fleetwood to just insult them.
Insult them brutally.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the tricky thing about monologues like this, is that they have to be earned to be compelling. So they should be done sparingly in film and television because not a lot tends to happen visually. It's just kind of highlighting the actor's ability to make words work.
Yes. Monologues are also usually not naturalistic.
No, people don't tend to be able to monologue unless...
Very rarely. What's the unless?
Unless. What are the times in which people are able to talk without interruption for such a long time, especially if they're doing a dressing down like this?
What, moments of deep passion? What are you getting at?
Yeah, moments of deep emotional passion and or moments in which the character is more powerful than the other character.
Yes. Notably, there are shows that have significantly heavier use of monologues. Notably, Mike Flanagan has a series of Netflix shows which are very enjoyable that rely heavily on monologue. Midnight Mass probably more than The Fall of the House of Usher or The Haunting of Hill House or The Haunting of Bly Manor. That works for some people and does not work for others. And I mean that both in terms of the creative and also the audience may or may not find that works for them.
You just have to be careful. I mean, I think that this is the thing, right? We set up the fact that there is a kind of general understanding, and then
we go,
becomes up
it's
to
not
you.
Always true.
Well, it becomes up to you whether or not to break that rule.
Yeah. Mike Flanagan breaks it all the time.
I mean, yeah, and I love Mike Flanagan's
stuff. Yeah, I love his work. I think it's very, very good.
I would argue that he sets up those monologues to happen at periods of emotional intensity.
Absolutely.
This is the thing. Monologues are like songs in musicals.
They're very much like songs.
And I think I've said this before, but it's only for when you have something really to frickin' say. And both you as the author and the character. It's not going to be a long grocery list unless that grocery list includes arsenic.
Yeah.
They're only effective at moments in which the character either has enormous power over the other or the scene is emotionally fraught. This one was both. So we get a lot of close-ups again for this scene, another emotionally fraught scene in which characters are trapped. Then we get a wide frame pan in on Leandrin at the Crucible to give us a sense of the magnitude and almost oppressive force of the tower, right? It starts from like a huge distance and then kind of zooms in very slowly. Leandrin is in shadow to emphasize her grief, of course. Egwene enters behind her and Leandrin does not turn around. Egwene is not worth the respect of turning around in that moment. So she had respect from Shiriam. She does not get it from Leandrin. A character making the decision to not turn around symbolizes who has power in the scene because the back turned, again, is a position of power. Leandrin turns around as Egwene says, "You wanted Nynaeve dead," because the words struck a nerve. But Leandrin falls back on the old sister, "Leave you to your grief," and once again regains the power by turning her back on Egwene to again walk away. Characters walking away from a character without looking at them is another emphasis of their power.
It's funny because I was working on a scene in an acting class where I had to really go off on another character, and I kind of got up in their face and started yelling. And my teacher stopped and said, "Don't do that. Go stay across the room and hit them from there. You're cutting your power if you think you have to be right up close to someone looking at them in order to have power. It can give you power, but usually not if you're having an outburst." That seems like a tantrum more often than not.
Yeah.
If, for instance, Egwene had run towards Leandrin before making this wall of flame, it would have been less powerful than her standing in place and just summoning a wall of fire.
Yeah.
Admittedly, Leandrin dispersed it with a wave of her hand, so clearly it was in and of itself a tantrum, but it was an impressive one at the moment.
I mean, a deserved tantrum.
Yeah.
The dismissal makes Egwene angry enough to break the rules and get out of her place for a moment. Egwene fitting into the tower is a big thing for her. So this moment is a big character moment for her, being like, I'm going to tell a sister, I'm going to tell it like it is. I think that you killed my friend on purpose. So this is perhaps kind of a breaking of a block of Egwene's, this desire to please authority.
Yeah.
Because they say that Egwene needs to relax. She needs to let go. She needs to, do all of these things, which she can't because she is so eager to impress. But in this moment, she lets that go. But for all Egwene's power, and she's still not channeling with her hands, yep, you said it, she dispelled it with a quick flick of the wrist.
By the way, just want to point out again, the upper bound, it seems, or a high bound of Egwene's abilities at this point after several months of training are fill a doorway with fire. Rand burned down a building while he was having a sex dream. Yeah.
I think that we're showcasing Rand's abilities in relation to other people's pretty well.
Yes.
Leandrin is dangerous to Egwene because she's still better trained, even though Egwene might be more powerful than she is. However, it does get her to turn around and look at Egwene with a face that's almost depressed.
And she backs her up to the...
Yeah. So Leandrin still shows she had the power because in acting, the person who backs up always has less power in the scene. She backs her up, right? We know that she's a threat because she's able to wave the cool thing Egwene did. I mean, that was pretty cool.
It was very cool.
And I think made all of us kind of go, whoa. Yeah. Waved it away. And so we know, okay, so Leandrin is still very much a threat to Egwene. She backs her up right to the edge.
Very calmly.
Very calmly, yeah.
In stark contrast to her slapping Nynaeve and yelling at her to get out, which is a moment where it seemed like she did not have a great deal of power. That was
she
like
had
a
no
wounded
control.
animal.
Yeah. When you lose control, you lose your power.
Yes.
Right? And
which is why it's not all proximity.
Lost control.
Yeah.
And she says, I had to write this. Her monologues this episode have
Real
been
good,
freaking rad.
Real good.
Yeah. I loved these. Okay, so I had to write this down. You were supposed to be the smart one, the girl who knew her place, the girl who knew how dangerous it is to overstep, which is in line with Egwene nearly stepping over the edge.
It's great timing on that.
Leandrin doesn't warn her that she's about to do that, right?
Yep.
Doesn't seem to care if she does.
Could probably catch her.
Yeah.
Which again would be a great show of power from her.
We Aes Sedai can only tell the truth, so hear my words and know they are true. I didn't send Nynaeve to her death. I sent her to the Arches because I believed in her, but she disappointed me. It's not always the most powerful women who write history. It's the ones who survive. So you remember your place, and you just might. It's a threat.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
you might survive. Yes, that is absolutely a threat.
It's also kind of the thesis for her, right? Yeah. She's like, I might not be the most powerful, but I am this survivor.
Yep.
And I do what it takes to make it. The wide-angle shot showing Leandrin backing Egwene up is meant to maximize our dread as we watch Egwene get closer and closer to the edge. A very different Leandrin from the one who talked to Mat, but she's looking to place blame wherever she can at the moment. But it's a different story here. Is that inconsistency grief or something deeper? Perhaps being someone evil. We don't know, right? There are a lot of people who have nefarious actions, but are they monsters? Again,
yes.
We're wondering, does someone who backs someone up to the edge of almost falling off and threatens them, is that a monster? Unclear. We've seen Moraine let someone die. Is she a monster? We don't know. The last two lines are a blatant threat to Egwene, but we've seen threats from Moraine, so that doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
Necessarily about Leandrin. Egwene shows that maybe she has the ability to meet Leandrin's power and even surpass it when she gets in Leandrin's face and says, you have no idea what I'm capable of.
It's a good rebuttal.
Ooh.
Allie dropped her phone. So now we're going to catch back up to where she was in her notes.
Leandrin notably doesn't yield any steps when Egwene gets in her face, but this time it's Egwene's turn to turn her back on Leandrin. So in this particular instance, Egwene getting in Leandrin's face is powerful.
Well, again, it's calm.
Yeah.
If you step up to somebody calmly and get in their space, this is acting specifically, it reads as, oh, they're not afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas having a tantrum in someone's face is sort of like, okay, baby needs a nap.
Yeah. And then she turns her back on her. So Leandrin has threatened her and showcased how much more powerful she is than Egwene at this point because she's well trained, but Egwene still turns her back on her.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, just as Egwene is rejecting a mentor, right, rejecting someone's advice, we then get to the Kyrian party. So that's an interesting cut because Rand then rejects Selene.
A lot with mentors.
From Mat's POV, we see Egwene crying and holding Nynaeve's belt in the garden, and she's clearly in need of a friend, like Leandrin said. People don't tend to cry in the open like that when they don't want someone to come and help them. I should know. And Mat has the opportunity. While Egwene rejected Elaine's help because the friendship was too new, perhaps she does still want some comfort. Clearly she does. She's out in the open. But from something or someone closer to home. It's also a big condemnation of the Aes Sedai that this girl is crying alone in a public space and no one has come to help her. No, like, trusted adult.
That's true. That's a good point.
But the shame of Mat abandoning his friends, not helped by the speech Leandrin gave him, is too much for Mat. And from a beautiful shot that focuses on Egwene crying with Mat in the background, we see him slip away with Egwene only looking up after he's gone, which is meant to frustrate the viewers over Mat missing an opportunity to help Egwene in her hour of need. But it's necessary for his journey. When we watched this with a friend of ours, and he did that, she went, Mat! Like, she got so frustrated, and it was great.
Pretty good.
Mat goes back into his prison, both physically and metaphorically, to seek the help of someone who doesn't know what a problem he is in his mind, Min. So, unlike Egwene, who rejected a new friend in her time of need, Mat specifically seeks out someone rather unfamiliar who cannot really know him. He doesn't tell her that he's free to go. A big hint that something may not be right with Min is the fact that she never has anything covering the hole in her wall.
Yes, I was gonna say that. I didn't realize you put it in your notes. If you think about it, anytime they went into the fucking Min's room, anybody would notice that there's a big goddamn hole.
Yeah.
And it's like, at first you go like, well, that's a plot hole. No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
Purposeful. Min never fears being discovered by the Aes Sedai, and that clue is there from the first time we meet her that all is not right with her. It's Mat's failure to banter with her after she jokingly accuses him of trying to seduce her that clues her and us into the fact that our guy is feeling badly. She enters his room and realizes the door is open.
It's so fun.
Telling him to go with her. He tells her, I don't know where to go. I've been here all these months and now I couldn't leave. I don't know where to go. Last season, all Mat wanted to do was go home to protect his sisters, but now he can't face them and the potential confirmation that he may be like his father after all. What protection can he offer them if that's the case? Mat feels that because he's abandoned his home and his friends, that it means they have abandoned him too. He's made a prison in his own mind, not being able to make a move because he has a certain decision paralysis, unable to go home and face his mistakes, but unable to picture a future without his friends and family. In the past, when Mat has been in a bind, he's had his friends to bail him out. But now who does he have when he needs them, since he abandoned them when they needed him? Min responds with, all that matters is that the door's open. It's time to walk through it, because I'm definitely not waiting for you. Sometimes there's no way to fix the past or predict the future, so you just have to move forward. Any other things to add about that scene?
I don't think so. It's lovely. I like it. It's great. It's fun. Min's a blast. I'm really glad we're getting more Min. In book 2, in particular, around this point, there's not a lot. She's kind of at the tower hanging out and shows up for a couple of conversations.
Yeah.
I like that she's a little more directly intertwined. I like that they're putting her with Matt. In the book, at this point, she's hanging out more with Elaine and Egwene.
I saw some criticism about the decisions surrounding, Perrin's wife, Matt's dad, Min's, trauma with her viewing as, now the characters are just going to be about that one particular trauma. It's going to just follow them from thing to thing. And yeah, in part, but I think that's neglecting the fact that, people who are traumatized, because they're like, there's no way they'll ever be able to get over it. And I go, well, no, there's no way for them to get over it necessarily. But people who are traumatized can also live really wonderful lives after their trauma. I think there's this weird idea,
I'm just like,
that our culture has, that we can't live a fulfilling life post-trauma. And I think it's actually a really dangerous mindset.
Well, and also like the characters have things in the books that also are fulcrum points for them. They're not the same things. Some of them are less dark. I think the show is darker than the books, but
I don't even think that the show is darker than the books. I think that the show is definitely darker than the earlier books.
Yes, that's
because I'm like, there are things that happen later
that are really
fucked up. So I just think that it's giving us fulfilling the promise of what the show becomes early.
Yeah, no, I agree with that,
and just deepening the characters that we get to know early.
The other, I mean, the characters I don't know. I understand the concern, but I'm also like, you can be a fully fleshed out character and have a core wound. That's why it's called a core wound.
Yeah.
It's your core. It's not the only thing about you. It's just a thing that when it comes up, ooh, that's going to matter. That's going to influence this.
Yeah, it's a thing that can be a motivator, but it's not the only thing about a character that makes a character tick.
Yeah. It's like just something that they're particularly passionate about, usually from a place of response.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't talk too much about this because, book spoilers, but like Rand has one particular trauma, he has two actually, that he keeps on going back to constantly throughout the books. At least two major traumas. And they do not define the character. They inform him and they inform his decisions, and things that happen to him reflect differently because of these traumas or responses to trauma. But it just adds another dimension. It doesn't take anything away.
Right. That's how I feel too. Matt asks Min later at the horses if she stole her things, things that she brings, and she responds, I prefer the term liberated. The two of them are connected because they don't have big moral issues with stealing to survive, right? They kind of seem to come from similar places. What I like that they're doing is they're kind of showcasing how these two people are alike. They're giving them kind of a shared sense of humor, a shared depth, which I think makes the fact that Min is probably betraying Matt.
Yes.
Well, is betraying Matt.
Is clearly betraying Matt.
Even more upsetting.
Yes.
Because is she a monster? She doesn't really strike me as a bad person.
No.
Mostly because she's funny, and we love funny people.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah. She's funny, and she reminds us of Matt, and just because she does things that are bad, like stealing, does not necessarily make her a bad person. This indicates Min perhaps came from a background familiar to Matt. Yep. And gives us hope that the door Matt went through might have led him to a friend who really understands him. Right as it's revealed, Min is working with Leandrin.
Bummer.
The room is specifically given red lighting to hint at what's to come. There's a lot of reddish
a lot of good color stuff in this show.
Yeah, I do like the color. Leandrin says that if Min succeeds, Moraine won't have anything on either of us ever again. We know Moraine knows about and exploits Leandrin's son and Min's powers, and that exploitation might have been a miscalculation, as it's caused these two to unite against her at Matt's expense.
Too much pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, much pressure.
Perhaps Moraine had overplayed. Min reaches for a flatbread, and Leandrin stops her in a visual metaphor for the obstacle Min faces. The future Min wants is being blocked by Leandrin, and is at Leandrin's discretion to provide. which Leandrin demonstrates by letting the bread go after saying, "Don't let me down." The implication being that it is only in doing that Min can get what she wants. Leandrin then watches Min go out the door as if Min is a puppet doing what she wants.
And that's it until...
And then that transitions into Celine at the window watching for Rand, which is great. Transitions, I love them.
They're very good. Before we check back in with Egwene having a bad time, and then finally Nynaeve, and then eventually Perrin, we're going to take another quick ad break. Welcome back.
So we get to Egwene channeling at the Arches.
Ah, yeah. And this is funny, because I watched this once, or I saw some commentary from somebody who was live watching it, who was a little more critical than others. And they're like, oh, God, I can't wait for her to just beast mode the arches open, which is funny, because that's kind of what you expect.
Right.
Right? You kind of expect, like, well, she's going to find out that she's special, and she's going to da-da-da, and she's going to... And that's not what happens.
No. She's unable to do it.
She can't do it. She encounters limits.
Which also showcases just how powerful Nynaeve is.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're setting up power levels. Egwene is powerful, right? Obviously. But she's still kind of discovering that power.
Meanwhile, did you know that
Nynaeve... it'd be
Nynaeve...
unrealistic for her to be able to beast mode that open.
Did you know that Nynaeve Almira is the most powerful channeler they've seen in 1,000 years?
What?
That's news to me.
I liked that Maxim goes, as you keep saying.
Yeah, it was like, really fucking funny.
We did need a little bit of that.
Well, because it's like they knew, because it had become a meme the week before.
Right.
They went, yeah, they're going to like this.
Yeah, they're going to like that. Each time she attempts and has the magic flow through her, we get wide shots as if we too can feel the magnitude of her power. Each time she fails, we get cuts to close-ups on her face, letting us witness her react to her failure and giving us that trapped feeling that she must feel, emphasizing the frustration. Elaine enters through the open door. Doors.
Hey!
Doors being open. Open doors. Doors are open.
Doors
Choices
being closed.
Being
the
presented.
doors. The
Doors.
gateways.
Doors.
The arches that are doors.
And
real fake doors.
And Elaine tells Egwene she's not the first to try opening the arches to save a friend or a lover. I love that we're leaning into that, the queerness of it all.
Mm-hmm.
They need more than one channeler to open the arches, which is going to give us an idea of how powerful Nynaeve is again in a show don't tell way. Since that's always more impactful.
Not only can she open it herself, she does so from within, where you're not supposed to be able to at all.
I noticed that in this scene, unlike others, Egwene is channeling using her hands.
Yeah.
Because her commitment to getting Nynaeve back is more important than her pride. Elaine says that Egwene could hurt herself, die, or be expelled from the tower. Egwene says, do you think I care about that now? Grief has a way of bringing clarity into what really matters, and to Egwene, Nynaeve is far more important than the goings-on in the tower. But she's lost sight of that, a very normal thing, when she was feeling competitive. But Elaine responds, yes, of course you do. Even though grief has made Egwene realize what's important, it doesn't mean that Egwene doesn't still want to be a powerful channeler. Elaine tells her that she's heard about the Trolloc attack and that Nynaeve came to the tower for Egwene. Do you really think Nynaeve would want you to throw away your life, your future, because she's gone? That gets at this important thing about grief. You have to feel it and be transformed by it, but it doesn't mean that you stop living your life just because someone can't live theirs. It's not honoring the dead to throw yourself away. Elaine also shows that just because she's a new addition doesn't make her a less valuable member of the team. She's astute, a good study of people, and learns quickly. Though Egwene felt it was too early for Elaine's comfort, Elaine's ability to be impartial, much like Min, becomes a different sort of comfort. In an episode that has everyone questioning who can be trusted, Elaine definitely seems like a good candidate. But we thought the same about Min. No one knows what happens in the arches. And then Egwene says, I can't leave her. And Elaine responds, I'll get some blankets. We'll stay the night. Maybe what she faced
sweet.
Offered her a better turning of the wheel. Elaine immediately makes herself a part of this on Egwene's terms here as a means of support. This is a woman who, it seems, has some experience with grief of some kind, because most women in their early 20s don't really know how to handle someone else rocked by such a profound grief. Speaking generally.
Yeah, broadly.
Yeah, broadly. I think that sometimes deep grief is just something that you have to experience to really understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not in a place that showcases very well how to support someone in deep grief. The mention of the better turning of the wheel, the transitions, I love good transitions, immediately transports us back to the two rivers. Lots of emphasis on pastel color palettes and birds singing in the background. Saturation to give us this idealistic view. In 90's head initially, this would be a better turning of the wheel, herself and her friends safe at home, or safe in general, with Egwene doing great things at the tower, showcasing that she's let Egwene go in a loving fashion to some extent and made her peace with the direction she's going in. But the rest of her boys who she knows are alive are largely home and around. And she has Lan as well, who is free from Moraine's bond and can be with her without baggage.
Yep.
This is the future as she wants it. And it's an awesome look into how Nynaeve sees her boys as opposed to how they see themselves. Nynaeve sees Perrin as someone who has made peace with violence, scampering around happily with her young daughter in a game that looks really similar to a game my sister and I used to play with my dad and stepdad when we were little that we called Monster, in which the dad in question would chase us around pretending to be a monster and then catch us. Perrin is looking like a monster, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is a loving, tender,
it's a game.
Good-hearted man. It's a game.
It's a game.
And he's not afraid to make a little play sword for Elnor.
And meanwhile,
Junior.
Matt's like a fucking world traveler with his fancy ass coat and shit.
Yeah. Perrin is questioning whether he's a monster in the show, but Nynaeve sees him as maybe someone who looks intimidating on the outside but has a soft heart, evidenced by how he's playing with her daughter. Regardless of your feelings about kids, we tend to love seeing a man who can be sweet to kids because it tends to evoke a sense of gentleness, and we get that from both Perrin and Matt. Perrin has in some way found his peace with violence as well in Nynaeve's head because he gives... Oh, yeah, I talked about this. But Nynaeve is unclear in her relationship to violence because when Elnor says her father will teach her how to use the sword, Nynaeve responds, "We'll see."
Mm-hmm.
There's no mention...
Well, I think that could also be sort of a, hey, maybe we won't need to.
Yeah.
I hope we won't need to, although then we get the thing about Trollocs in the north.
That's what I mean, is that she's not seeing her daughter as someone who will need to use a sword because they're in such a peaceful place. But we know that that's not true. There's no mention of Nynaeve's own knowledge of how to use the sword, which she gleaned from the tower, likely because she's distanced herself from it, sees it as not a useful tidbit of information.
And Lan's grown his
hair. And
also,
because, Lan is better at it, no question, but still, I think that's intentional, that she never mentions that she knows how to use one. Matt, like you said, who questions in the books whether he's a good person or a prick just like his dad, and who struggles with poverty, is a noble in more ways than one as he comes riding up. Matt was gentle with his sisters in the first episode of season 1, and this assurance that though he's become a lord, he's not lost his sweetness. And that should be reassuring to us as well, that he's still that way despite the dagger's influences and the suffering he's endured.
Mm-hmm.
We get another mention of a term we heard Errol use in the first episode of season 2, Blade Master, when Matt sees Elnor. Because it's been brought up twice, it's likely that it's something they want us to remember.
Yep.
Usually the real magic is in saying it 3 times. So I'm assuming there may be an additional mention down the line. In the books, Nynaeve sees herself as a queen with Lan in this part of the Arches, but I think that this was a smart departure because it gives us a chance to see what is driving Nynaeve, the chance for this future. That's why she's so protective. In her ideal future, it's not just herself who is happy, but everyone. And they're all safe from the violence in their little Two Rivers bubble.
Yep. Alas...
So everyone goes inside, and Lan, and that's when we get to see Lan for the first time
with his long
hair grown
hair.
out.
What a looker this guy is.
Two Rivers Lan, in
hair
sensible
let
wool.
Down. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Matt and Perrin play fight with Elnor while Lan and Nynaeve talk. I think it's interesting. It kind of almost looks like the playing is almost kind of a foreshadowing of what's about to happen.
A little bit.
Matt and Perrin play fight. Yeah. Egwene is, Lan and Nynaeve talk about how Egwene is fighting a Trolloc invasion in Saldea, which Lan says is far from here, and Nynaeve says not far enough.
This reminds me a lot of dialogue from a very different scene. There are a number of moments in book 2 that involve potential futures. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. That have people talking about we've been living in Two Rivers quite a while, but there's supposed to be Trollocs up north, but that's a ways, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it's one of those things where it's we're showcasing the consequences of Nynaeve not being part of everything.
Yeah.
And, her and her friends being taken out of the equation for what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Nynaeve calls Egwene by just Egwene.
She drops the Sedai, doesn't she?
Lan calls her Egwene Sedai,
yeah.
showcasing neither has shaken their old habits despite the passage of time. Nynaeve's hope that she can go back to her little part of the world and that she and her friends could be insulated from the violence to come is starting to crack. Nynaeve's realizing, things are coming. And then Lan asks Nynaeve if she regrets leaving the tower, and she says nothing. That's a yes.
Yeah. But also that she's happy, but also But
there's something there. We can assume that means whatever answer she shouldn't say is probably the truth, or at least partially true.
Mm-hmm.
In abandoning the tower, Nynaeve likely hoped that it meant her interaction with the hard choices of the apocalypse were over. But as events worsen, she likely realizes that what she's done is deprive the world of one of their most powerful beings and left her unable to fully defend her loved ones. And Nynaeve's hopes are fully shattered along with her door. Much like the wheel turning, we get to see the cyclical nature of life when Nynaeve must protect Elnor like Elnor once protected Nynaeve.
Yep.
This is the constant turning of the wheel that Dana wanted to stop in season 1. And this is not the better turning that Nynaeve hoped it would be, and that Elaine speculated about. The regret she likely feels at choosing what she wants over the fate of the world as reports of violence increase is likely what prevents her from doing the exact thing she did when she came out of the arches in a fake way again, but for real. Nynaeve has to live this imagined other life in order to realize it's not possible, and that she has to stay in the tower for the fate of the world. Like Shiriam said, they need her with them in the end. I said that, but bears repeating. Nynaeve is able to defend herself this time, as opposed to the initial attack when she was a child, and the initial Trolloc attack, likely in part due to her warder training in her mind.
Sure, yeah, she can construct, yeah. Of course, everybody else dies.
But she gets to see for herself what Leandrin has said about the uselessness of swords when compared to the tower.
Yes.
We also get to see what Moraine mentions about how brave it is to face the dark with nothing but a sword, as we see all of our beloved people die one by one.
It's rough.
When Nynaeve sees Lan stabbed, she's able to do what we were told was impossible and channel in the arches.
It's always Lan.
Mm-hmm. Nynaeve is unprecedented levels of powerful, and this is another show don't tell of that. Elnor comes out to ask, Mummy, what's that?
Oh my God.
And Nynaeve sees the arches and realizes what all of this is.
I cry every time I watch this shit.
But she can't, being who she is and who we know her to be after all of these arches, bring herself this time to leave her child behind. Children represent hope, innocence, and the future. Nynaeve, other than also just the natural instinct to protect her child, is also protecting those things symbolically as well. So when she goes through the arches, all of those things are ripped from her. And though she remembers living a whole life with Lan, it's all gone. It never was.
Now, the third arch in the book, again, it's much shorter. And it's it's her kind of in a field of flowers. Malkir has been rebuilt. Lan rides out. And she's like, I'm a queen. This is amazing. I'm with Lan, whom I love. Everything is amazing. They talk about their children. And then the arch reappears. Mm-hmm. So this is significantly more painful, I think, in terms of long-term pain.
Yeah.
And I think we'll have a lot of hard repercussions for Nynaeve.
Mm-hmm. I also freaked a bit at the blood on Nynaeve that is right where Elnor should be, as if it's this big wound now she has, as if the kid was hurt in some way, even though actually it's probably Lan's blood.
Probably.
But we get to see it coating her right where she was carrying her daughter. By the way, we probably got the earlier scene in which Lyanna remarks that the blood on Nynaeve isn't hers, because in this scene they wanted us to know for sure the blood isn't hers. Nynaeve gets out of the arches with empty arms and falls to the ground wailing. Egwene rushes over to her to comfort her, and Nynaeve at last allows her to see how much she's hurting, because the pain is so profound she can't hold it in.
Hell of an ending.
So now, from here, she has to figure out how to have a relationship with the tower, because she must.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy realizations for Nynaeve.
This, I like pretty much all episodes of this show by and large, but this was a very, very strong one.
This was one of the best episodes of the show.
Yeah. I
in my mind,
in turns devastated and buoyed and devastated and enjoyed it and was devastated. Rinse and repeat.
Speaking of devastation, shall we move to the C plot?
Oh, right. There's a whole fucking another plot. Wow. I forgot, and goddamn, speaking of, okay.
Are you okay?
I'm good. I forgot. Yeah, I totally forgot we hadn't talked about Perrin because I was so wrapped up in the Third arch.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? Like this episode is fucking packed.
It is.
With stuff. Like just stuff to unpack. It's amazing. Packed with stuff to unpack.
Hey.
There we go. So we got Perrin and the Shan-Chan.
Oh, yeah.
So many smart choices in this initial scene.
Oh,
My
man.
God. As Rafe has said, they're here to show that the Shan-Chan don't fuck around.
We
and
need
as
to
such,
be fucking terrified of
they
the Shan-Chan,
showcase
he said.
how big the obstacles are that these characters are now facing. Right? This is the obstacles season.
Mm-hmm.
Nynaeve's relationship with the tower. Obstacle. Perrin and the Shan-Chan and the Shan-Chan in general. Obstacle. Like we are upping the threat levels constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I'm very certain of what I think will be and I will brag about it. I was very certain what the ending of this season would be. And I was fucking right.
Yes, we are recording this part after having seen everything because it's much later now.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we're not going to talk about it. Yeah.
Okay. But Rafe, in my mind, is saying, I don't want to hear shit about how the Shan-Chan aren't that bad, which sometimes people say about the Shan-Chan in the books. The specific costuming choices are designed to make the characters look as inhuman as possible. It's playing on the fact that they have the bug helmets and the bug motifs.
In the books, they're described as looking like giant bugs.
Right. So we're playing on that. We're making them look as kind of inhuman and alien as possible.
Uh-huh.
Right? From their hairstyles to their weird kind of appendagey. It looks alien, and they look like they have spines on the back of their armor.
It's really cool.
I mean, to me, it looks...
They look a little bit like the Krogan from Mass Effect, too.
Really? They kind of remind me of Predator.
Yeah, well, various aliens.
Yeah, various, like,
the
otherworldly creatures.
The women who control the magic women look like they have... look like the Krogan from Mass Effect. Specifically because of their back armor. The
scary helmets, scary masks, Suroth wearing horns that make her look demonic, all with the purpose of making these characters feel like a hive collective. Getting at one of the types of horror that I love, machine horror, which represents our fear at a loss of autonomy. We place a lot of importance on the human face. When that is taken away, the person no longer feels human. How fitting for a group that enslaves people, that they lose their humanity when they deprive others of theirs. The lower down the people are, the more of their faces we can see in this initial stage.
Mm-hmm. And the more hair they have.
Yes. Those people are pawns in a larger game. Very purposefully, the people who are enslaved have way more of their faces showing than almost anyone else, giving them a look at their humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was also a great choice to have a blonde-haired girl be presented as one of the first enslaved women we get to know. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that they are enslaved.
That's not a spoiler.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I thought it was really smart in an initial scene showing an enslaved person to not have that be in some way evocative of something, of a real world situation.
Yeah.
Because
you're talking about American chattel slavery.
I'm talking about American chattel slavery, and I think that it's really smart that they are distancing themselves from that.
Well,
while also still like not here's what I'm saying. Not capitalizing on an existing group's trauma.
Yes.
For entertainment.
Yes.
I think is a smart choice.
Because notably the Shan-Chan also have American accents, which is by the way true in the books. They have Texan accents in the books.
Yeah.
So it is clear to me that the parallels are deliberate.
Yeah.
But that we are going, and it's inspired by but different from.
It's
based on but different.
Letting itself be its own. Here's the thing. It's letting itself be its own thing that is different than, but also fully exploring the stakes of what that is.
Yes.
I just think it's really smart to be like, we're not necessarily capitalizing for entertainment on the existing trauma of a
Well, that would
group.
be fucked.
It would, but that happens.
Yes, I know.
You know? No, I mean, it happens. Like, that is something that people do.
Yeah. And it's
in
not to
entertainment
say-
historically. And I'm glad that they're being really, here's the thing. I'm glad they're being really conscious about the decisions that they're making
Yes.
therein. That they're like, we're going to showcase the full trauma of what this means and like not pussyfoot around about whether or not this is good or bad.
Yeah.
We're going to show that these people are fucking terrifying and should be feared.
And are, kind of shitty.
Also, the girl is very clearly a child.
Yes. It's, oh God, I remember that picture first made the rounds on Twitter. Everyone was going, oh my God, it's a kid.
Good. Because you know what? This is the thing. If we are going to have slavery in something, we need to fucking like do it. Like this is my thing is if we are going to explore something this wrong and this traumatic, we can't just go like, and they're slaves.
They ain't house elves.
There's Oompa Loompas. They're enslaved, but like in a cute way.
They're
like,
not
we
the
can't be
Ood.
doing this anymore.
Yeah.
We cannot be. We shouldn't have ever been doing this, but we cannot do this anymore.
Yeah.
In entertainment, where we're like, oh, but like they're happy this way. No, fuck you.
I mean,
It's bad.
admittedly, blonde girl seems to really be enjoying herself. That does not mean that she is happy. We'll get there.
I have a
when we
lot
get
of thoughts
there.
about this
We have
down
a
the
lot to
road.
talk about down the road about this that we can't necessarily cover right now
Not
in
right
the scope
now.
of this.
But I did see some people online refer to her as bratty.
Oh, okay.
I think this just shows how brainwashed she is that this girl who is a literal child is visibly delighting in subjugating people as she has been subjugated. Brainwashing is on the table. Also, let's keep in mind that she's in front of the people enslaving her, so she may need to put on a mask, a face.
Yeah. We'll see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. I'm speculating that we will likely... I said this at the time. I'm speculating that we will likely see more of her.
By the way, going back to what you said earlier about visual parallels and other parallels to American chattel slavery, the gag is an American chattel slavery thing.
Right.
So it is aware of what its inspiration and parallel is.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I think I want to be thoughtful about how I say this because we're dealing with a really delicate subject. I think that they are walking the line of we're going to acknowledge what this is and the extent to which this is a traumatic, awful thing that we should not undersell without, I think, necessarily making it feel like, oh, we're going to exploit the real world traumas of real people for entertainment. And I think they're walking that line very carefully. Yeah. Which I appreciate.
Well, it's very much in the line of just throwing traumatic imagery about willy-nilly with full brunt or tempered or changed or in any other way. To refer back to other fantasy shows that will just like have SA happen on screen because they know it's going to get a response versus addressing a topic perhaps more carefully.
Yeah, I think my thing has always been, it's not that you can't explore these kinds of traumas on screen. And I do think to a certain extent, people need to be made aware of the gravity of these things. It's how you do it that really matters to me.
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah.
And I think that they are doing a good job, to me, of showcasing how monstrous this is.
Yes.
I also thought it was a smart choice to showcase the impact that the taking of these girls has. We hear about it happening in the books, and we see like scorched marks in the earth at these different towns.
Yeah, we never actually see this.
Never see it happen.
We only see the aftermath of this.
And the devastation that it inflicts on their families.
We're getting a little outside of our spoiler scope with this, because this is some later stuff in the book. So let's be very careful.
All right, we'll talk about that later. Young girls in our society, we pretty universally agree, is someone who needs to be protected.
Right.
Right? Young children, young girls. To see these children ripped from the arms of their wailing loved ones is exactly how strongly we should be emphasizing how awful this is.
It's not only children, too. It's some older women, I believe.
In this episode, I think I only
just
saw
children? Oh, okay.
like youngish women.
Sure, okay.
So, of course, seeing this scene, Uno would want to protect these children.
Yep, because he is a protective person. He's funny, and we like him, and he's enjoyable as a character, but he is also very much full of vinegar and very, very principled. Notably, remember, he found out that the Shinarin from earlier was a dark friend and was like, fuck him.
Spit on him,
Leave him. He did spit on him. He has very strong feelings.
Yeah, I think what happens is very much in line with who Uno is as a character, even though it doesn't happen in the books.
Yes. That is a notable change. Uno doesn't die here.
Uno wouldn't bow to them.
Uno would not bow to them.
No.
No, I do not believe he would.
Notably, the Suldam bows before the hook at the base of the palanquin before she walks away.
Chekhov's hook.
Chekhov's hook. So then they pick Uno to swear the oaths first.
Well, yeah, I think that the soldier sees that he's trying something.
Yeah.
Or sees that he's probably the one who would be the most resistant. Mm-hmm. And that is a very, unfortunately, clever thing that she does by going, this guy's going to be a problem, so we should just stamp him out first and foremost. Right. And if he goes down, everybody else will go down.
This is a very story-turny plot line, by the way, because we're learning about a whole new group. Mm-hmm. We also get another choice presented. There are choices all over this episode. But instead of a door, it's a spike. I think this is likely something that they do. They pick someone they think will likely resist as an intimidation tactic when they kill him.
Yeah.
Right? To get people to be subservient. It feels like they specifically were looking around, looking for the person who is most like, this is bullshit, to bring him forward first, because it accomplishes one of two things. If they kill him, it showcases that they're not fucking around. And if he capitulates, then it encourages everyone else to do so too, because they took their strongest person and made him capitulate. Mm-hmm. So it's going to decrease resistance either way. It's a win either way. It just looked like they were looking for him. And the woman who was the soldier specifically came up when she was like, who's ready to swear the oaths? And she goes, he is.
This man.
Yeah.
Fun. Oh, we mentioned earlier that the voice, Alwyn is the character's name, who is speaking, is Guy Roberts' real world wife.
It was so funny. We messaged him like, and your own wife.
Yeah. I think we said that earlier.
Yeah,
but,
it was so funny. The brutality of the killing is also a message to the characters and the fans. The Shan-Chan do not fuck around. The only time we hear Suroth speak is to say after Uno's death, all shall bow. The less she says, the more weight she has when she does speak.
Yep. There are other reasons that I think they chose to kill Uno that we can't talk about right now, but we can talk about in the spoiler scope section. Just, I will say it establishes for the book fans, hey, you think you know what's going to happen. Maybe you don't.
Maybe you don't. I like that.
I like that too. And not in a senseless way, I would say, because Uno's death serves purpose.
Yeah.
You don't have to like it. That's okay. It does serve... It was done with narrative intent.
Yeah.
Again, I think some shows kill characters solely to keep you on your toes. I think, and again, this is not a criticism of this choice, but I think The Walking Dead in particular will kill characters simply because they haven't in a minute, or did when that was on the air. Game of Thrones in its early years, I think, killed characters because the plot demands it. Notably, I'm not going to be specific about Game of Thrones in case you haven't watched it, but a lot of what kind of set that show apart in its early days was that major main characters would die seemingly before the end of their arcs, but those character deaths were done sort of in a way where it went, well, duh, how in a realistic scenario would you expect this person to get out of this? It doesn't make sense, and it wouldn't happen. So therefore, expect that this is a world where actions have consequences and things may not happen according to narrative structure as you want it to. And in this, Uno's death serves narrative purpose.
Mm-hmm. It does.
And world purpose.
So we cut to a carriage and a bloody Perrin shackled inside.
Yes. Oh, also, we should talk about how Perrin is the last one to go down.
Yes. Oh, yeah. He wants to be... Oh, yeah.
Because Ingtar tells them, fuck it, no, not worth it. And then Masima goes down, and then Perrin goes down at the very end, and then he looks up and he makes eye contact with Ishamael.
Yeah, I think that's going to be important, is Perrin's unwillingness. Well, Perrin realizing that perhaps violence is necessary sometimes in these particular instances. Even though he watched Uno get killed, it's like maybe it's better to go down for something that's right than to kneel before something that's wrong. Mm-hmm. Who is a monster? Is attacking these people a monstrous thing to do? Was Uno a monster? I don't think so.
It was a futile effort.
But perhaps to them, Una was.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. So yeah, we get a bloody Perrin shackled inside a carriage, a liminal space. Ishamael sitting across from him and says that I am the man who is standing between you and the spike.
It's a good line.
We get a little casual threat in there. Don't play along and Uno might happen to you. You might be duo.
Duo. Or dose.
Or dose.
Whatever.
In introducing himself as someone who could keep Perrin alive, again, who is a monster? Is somebody who could keep you alive a monster? Is he a problem? We don't know, necessarily. But we've heard a lot, potentially, about him and his bad works, so we're supposed to assume so. But we're kind of seeing how he gets at people.
Notably, he has also already referred to himself by the moniker Father of Lies, so let's take what he says with a grain of salt here.
Right? But he thinks that those labels are unfair.
He does.
Who's right? But he says that Perrin is headed to Falm. He has this creepy ass moment where he gives Perrin water, but he insists on holding it and pouring it down his throat.
It's very erotic.
He has sexual chemistry with literally everyone.
Chemistry with everybody.
Literally everybody.
Oh,
this actor has sexual chemistry with everyone.
Is just knocking it out of the
is
park.
Just
man.
walking magnetism.
Walking sexual tension, this kid. He's a grown-ass man. What am I talking about?
But yeah.
He's older than I am and not a little bit.
But it's it's almost this fatherly thing to give pour water into somebody's mouth, and it's corrupted here.
It is. It's very corrupted.
He tenderly takes his face. It's really well done.
Yeah.
And the high angles of the shots hint at Perrin's vulnerability.
Yep.
And Ishamael says, you know you have something inside you. Something that calls for blood. Something that sets your eyes on fire. Show me, Perrin. I want to meet the monster. Ishamael is once again getting at the thesis of what is a monster. We know that Perrin, the man, is not a monster. We've seen that in Nynaeve's test, right? He's a good-hearted person. Both because of but Perrin fears that he might be, and Ishamael is playing off of that, both because of his wolf abilities and also because he killed Layla. Perrin then looks into Ishamael's eyes and sees the fire-eyed man he and the boys all saw in their dreams. Ishamael is basically pairing them together, being this sets your eyes on fire. Your eyes change because of this. My eyes have also changed. You've seen me before. We are connected. He's connecting them on purpose. Perrin then does a, I think very purposefully animalistic, who are you?
It is, yeah. It's pretty intense.
Who are you? Right?
Yeah.
I think it's meant to feel almost what is he transitioning into a wolf? What's he doing? Is he a monster? We know he's not, but he does these things sometimes. He's showing a more bestial side. Oh, and then he says, you're dead. Rand killed you. And Ishamael replies, is that what Moraine told you? The Father of Lies is sowing distrust in their ranks. Yes, Moraine lied to them. Has lied to them in the past. Can they trust her? I also like that Ishamael is outfitted like an oily businessman from the Mad Men era.
I love the fucking costuming in this show so much.
It's so
There's
well
so much
done.
attention to this stuff.
The wolves come and Ishamael says they're here in a taunting tone, almost if this plays into his plans. Ishamael tells him, the more wolf you are, the more you're mine. I'll be watching your progress with great interest.
This fucking guy.
Before calmly walking out into the chaos, calm always being powerful.
Calm is power.
Again, making this seem like this plays into his plans. Everything is going according to plan, which we should be panicking about.
Mm-hmm.
Ishamael is playing into Perrin's suspicions of his powers. Are these a good thing, or are there negative reasons why Elias is such a mystery? Could Perrin really be a monster? Like Matt, Perrin is given an uncertain door to walk through as Elias enters, looking rather monstrous himself as his face drips blood.
Yeah, it looks like he tore someone's fucking throat out with his teeth.
Definitely did.
This man is biting people.
But Perrin isn't so dissuaded by Ishamael that he doesn't follow Elias. Perrin says that he wants to go get Loyal and the others, and Elias responds, you can't help your friends from the back of a cage. Perrin is not a beast meant to be chained, and he's useless to everyone if he is.
Go ahead.
Last thing. But is this boy stumbling into an even bigger trap? Only time will tell.
It's interesting because I think that they are, compared to the book They're making Elias more wolf-like. He spends all his time with wolves in the books, but he's still very much a civil human.
Yeah.
You know? He's called Long Tooth by the wolves because he has a long knife. And it seems like this man bites people.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of into it.
Seems like he does. And I'm into it as well. You know what? Fuck it.
I kind of like it a lot. Carrie Beadle is doing an amazing job.
I really the actors in the show are really killing it. I'm pleased. I like that they're leaning into the mystery of Elias and the mystery of these powers and how uncertain Perrin is about whether or not these are good things. Maybe not all gifts are good.
Yep.
And that's the end of Perrin.
And that's the end of the spoiler for the show section, the show only. So we're going to say farewell, good night, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye to anybody who has only watched the show. Go away as soon as you can, because after these upcoming ads, we're going to get into the spoiler section, and you don't want that. If you have not read for what Allie has read, which is Through Knife of Dreams Chapter 3, go away.
It's a spoiler, babies. Spoiler, 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 spoiler.
Welcome to
the spoiler section.
I have to come up with I'm trying to think of a thing.
Sorry.
I got to make a bit. I got to do a joke.
Do your bit.
Spoilancelandia.
Nice.
Where there are spoilers abounding like dinosaurs.
All right. We've got some stuff to break down.
We got a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to talk about here.
Okay. So, sorry, I yawned a little bit.
It's totally fine.
We've got Nynaeve in the accepted test. As a little girl, the dad comes over when she's got the deadly herb. What's it called?
Crimson Thorn. This is spoilers, by the way, through Knife of Dreams Chapter 3.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for saying.
Spoilers through Knife of Dreams Chapter 3.
I'm so glad that I know about Adelius's death for this season because now I get to pick up on all this other shit that I wouldn't have picked up on last season.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, we're introducing this deadly herb again. This is the third time we've seen Crimson Thorn.
Yep.
When Adelius has just been introduced, frequently wearing red flowers. Giving Adelius this much focus and having her impact the plot as a whole means her death is going to be given, I think, a lot more importance.
Very possible.
Oh my God, Natty in the accepted test.
Yeah.
She is so getting a redemption arc.
Now, you mentioned in the
God.
main section that you had a theory on how that redemption arc was going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember what it was? Because we recorded that part weeks ago.
Okay, you know the Battle of Two Rivs?
Yes.
She's going to be the first one stabbing, for sure.
I'll buy it.
Yeah, it's going to be like, oh God, like the women are running away, la-da-da-da-da. We've seen Natty run away from danger even when her own children are threatened before. But now we're seeing in the accepted test, we are setting up this idea, right? That when the chips are down, Natty will step up.
Mm-hmm. Even if this is not the real Natty.
Even this is, it doesn't matter because we're seeing her in a position. First of all, we're reminding ourselves, oh, Natty exists, which is important. Just the idea of reminding people that Natty exists, right? When they could have picked a couple other people to fill this role, they pick Natty, which I go, okay, so we are supposed to be reminded that Natty is specifically kind of hamstringing Matt, right? I just feel like we're going to be, chips are down. The women and children are supposed to run to the forest, right?
Natty Cawthon comes out with a fucking frying pan.
Natty with her fucking frying pan is going to be just fucking
Although a frying pan
wailing.
is funny, so it's probably actually going to be like
I think it's a
kitchen
pitchfork
knife
or something.
Pitchfork,
yeah. I'm visualizing like a pitchfork or something, but she just comes and spears somebody.
No, because we had the pitchforks on Winter Night. They had the women kill the Trolloc with the pitchforks on Winter Night.
Maybe it does have to be something that's
I think it has to be something different.
I don't know if they're going to separate the women and children, by the way. I'd be like, the women have to go into, I don't know if that's going to happen. I do think, though, that she's going to be like, maybe I shouldn't fight, right? Well, she's going to, like, maybe choose cowardice at first.
They might not because, it might just be like, hey, some people need to go with the kids because we might need to evacuate the children, you know?
Yeah.
So.
But I think that she comes back.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be some kind of thing where it seems like she's going to flee from the danger.
And then she doesn't.
And then she really doesn't.
Does Abel come back?
Yeah. I think that Natty's redemption is seemingly being given more weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dog is going to make some noise.
Dog noises. Yeah. So I just think it seems like they're giving Natty as a character a little more attention than they are Abel. That could change, right? We've got a lot of show until Battle of Two Rivs, but it seems like they're at least setting Natty up for redemption.
Probably not that much if season 4 is book 3. Season 3 is book 4, my God.
Yeah, but that's still 7 whole episodes. I mean, I'm assuming Battle of Two Rivs is either 7 or 8 of 3.
True, okay, yeah.
So that's still quite a bit.
We'll see.
Yeah. But they're reminding us that she exists specifically, which means to me, they're like, remember her? Remember her.
Remember her. It's a command.
The scenes between Leandrin and Shiriam are so fun to watch, knowing they're both Black Aja, but may not know about each other.
Well, to clarify for people, you have gleaned and determined that Shiriam is either Black Aja or is involuntarily working for them because of the whole being beaten by apparently a Forsaken in the tent that one time.
Yeah, but they may not know about each other, which adds such a fun dynamic that I'm sure the two women know. The two actresses know. They
know whether or not they are, yes.
Yeah, and whether or not they know about each other, which I think no, probably not. But yeah, and then they must be having so much fun playing whatever that reality is without telegraphing it. I just think it's exciting as a dynamic. But then I'm also like, they're purposely put, this is my other argument, they're purposely put in the same position, facing a window back to the camera. It just feels like the two of them are being set up to be in a conversation with each other as characters.
You also wanted to talk more about Elaine's grief, or her understanding of grief.
I'm getting there.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Ingtar and Masima put themselves before protecting the innocent.
Yes.
Something Perrin struggles to do.
Yes.
Foreshadowing at its finest.
Yes.
Like, we're showcasing that Masima sucks. Am I right?
And, the Ingtar dark friending stuff.
Yeah. Lanfear is sitting under a sign that is her chapter logo from the books.
Wait.
That's this episode.
Lanfear. Yeah, she was. It's the fucking moon and stars.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, that was great.
She's also wearing black lace under her blue coat, which I'm feeling like is a hint.
Yes.
Color-wise.
Hints of black, hints of white. The use of color in costuming is fucking great.
Something to pay attention to. Rand leaning into Lanfear and saying that he thinks she prefers when there's a little bit of mystery. Such dramatic irony for what's going on right now. They're having a lot of fun with the dramatic irony. I really love that.
Yes, they are.
Lanfear being the one who gets him the coat. I love that choice. I
loved it. Yosha may have kept that coat, by the way.
Good for him. Getting him that coat. Dressing him like what she wants him to be. Oh, there's so much there about just like her manipulating him into what she envisions Lews Therin being. It is Matt questioning Leandrin's integrity and accusing her of bullshit. That makes her unleash her cruelty on him.
Yep.
That's what strikes close to home. Gee, I wonder why.
Huh.
Maybe because the one time she was trying to do something out of guilt, it gets questioned.
Huh.
Starve in the Blight is what Lanfear says the Kyrian nobles.
Yeah, it's the same turn of phrase.
Just
a couple scenes apart from each other.
That's what she says they're hoping the Hunters of the Horn will do. And that link is so on purpose.
And then Leandrin says to Matt, go starve in the Blight.
Which is why I'm saying that I think the links between Shiriam and Leandrin might be on purpose. We'll see. Lanfear saying to Rand, I could get used to you looking like this when he's wearing the coat.
That was something.
I just want to call out those things. Lanfear looks really comfortable in this environment.
She looks really comfortable in every environment.
But especially in the like Kyrian and noble place. And Rand does not, laying the groundwork for our audience that she seems too comfortable here for being a woman from a humble four-gate background, especially when she dismisses Lady Anver. The audacity. She also has no trouble with the fact that people are being sent off to die so that the nobility don't have to feed them, laughing at Rand's naivete. This could be dismissed by first-timers as someone who has seen a lot and is worldwide.
And is jaded.
A potential good mentor for Rand. Or, if they're into romance tropes, of the romance tropes of it all, they might catch on to the fact that something may be off with her. She might be a miss wrong. The writers cleverly disguise the Forsaken being out without tipping readers off that she could be Forsaken, while still laying the breadcrumbs that she could be Lanfear by having mention of the Forsaken in the first season and having Moraine deduce that Ishamael is out and maybe planning on releasing the others. By making it seem like this is something he may do, the writers show simultaneously how much on the back foot even someone as powerful as Moraine is when compared to the Forsaken. Because he's already done it. But we think that it's going to be a future thing. But that's like the first thing he did after he left the Eye of the World, I bet.
She knows that at least one of them is out because of the moon dial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like she's saying May.
Yes.
She's saying like that's what he's planning.
Yes. Meanwhile, Lanfear is very deeply intertwined with Rand right now, which is not what you want.
The writers also successfully walk the tightrope of giving information without giving it all away.
Yes.
Really smart work there. I saw a mystery writer on TikTok, because I've been following these mystery writers. I think I said this last episode, say that one of the most important things you can do in mystery writing is mess with the order in which you give information so that the breadcrumbs are there, but the trail isn't obvious.
Yes.
And by having the order of information changed around in different plot lines, the writers successfully give us the surprise.
Yes.
Everything everyone says or does is part of some scheme or some game, is what Lanfear says. Dramatic irony for the ones who know that Selene is Lanfear. Don't ask questions you know the answers to, is what she says to Rand. Yes, the obvious answer is because she loves him. Because he's like, why do you even waste your time with me? And she says, don't ask questions you know the answers to. So obviously she's saying like, because I care about you, because I love you, right? But the dramatic irony here is that Rand is not yet aware of how much she loves him. This reply has layers of subtext.
Just a couple.
Just a couple. Not being paralyzed by his past mistakes feels very purposeful. His obsession with what he's done in the past haunting him, bothering him. I feel like it's purposeful.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Matt's obsession with his past actions feels...
True, yeah, making up. Yeah, okay. I get where you're going with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
Why wouldn't it? I mean, I know that they were basically kind of forced into this plot line by Barney Harris's
they
absence,
absolutely were.
But I feel like they are taking advantage of it and emphasizing it further, in part because it's like him having this like idea of himself as no hero and past things being like something that kind of bothers him is a constant thing.
Yeah, here's the thing, because we know now, because it's after the whole season has come out and they've been able to do interviews, that they essentially had to do a page one rewrite because of Barney Harris's exit. And I really love what they have done.
Me too.
And I'm only talking about the first 3 episodes right now.
Whether it's worked for you or not.
With the fact that they had to completely fucking overhaul everything and not have the boys be together, because that was actually the original plan, was a lot closer to the pages of book 2 of the boys are together hunting for the horn. And I just love that we've been able to spend so much specific time with these characters still like as themselves in spite of it.
No.
Do we want to talk about Uno? Or do you have...
We're getting...
All right, I'm sorry, I forget.
Wait, what are we wanting to... We talked about a couple things we wanted to talk about.
I wrote it all
later.
down. You already talked about all.
Oh, Elaine's...
Grief, yeah.
Grief.
That's the other one.
Grief with Elaine. Definitely she's experienced that with her father.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. It's that being forced to grow up too soon.
Yeah, and probably also with Tom getting forced out.
Well,
a different kind of grief,
so.
But, you know.
Yeah.
Tarangale's death, for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about Uno.
All right. Oh, we already talked about Uno, actually. Yeah, we did, because we talked about Ingtar and Messina.
Yeah.
I'm losing track.
Oh, yeah, but, I mean, it just makes sense why they cut him.
I love Uno, man. And, you know, I love Guy Roberts. He did such a great job. He was so funny.
Such a fan of
He's such a fan. And, you know, I'm as sad as anybody. But listen, y'all, Uno doesn't do anything after book 3 as far as we're gone along. Like in book 6, he starts teaching cavalry. And that's kind of the last time we've seen him.
Yeah.
I love Uno. He's a fucking funny character. He has great moments with Nynaeve, and yeah, we'll lose those character moments for him and Nynaeve, and that is sad. But I understand that if you got to kill somebody, if you're choosing to kill somebody, and you want to have minimal plot change from it, You can't kill Mishima.
No.
And you can't really kill Ingtar now.
And it doesn't make sense for either of them to give up their lives for that.
No.
So,
and if you bring in some random third person or fourth person and kill them,
we won't care.
It's not going to be as significant to the book people. It might still be significant to show only folks. However,
this might seem like a bit of a stretch, by the way, this next thing.
Go ahead.
But it pricked my ears up. When Perrin and Ishamael are in the carriage, Ishamael says to Perrin, I was starting to worry you might never wake up. And I was kind of like, dream shit?
I think he was... I mean, maybe.
Just seemed like an interesting line to me.
It is. I mean, because Ishi loves his dreams.
Ishi loves the dreams. Perrin with the wolf dreams. I don't know. I might be a bit of a stretch, but I was kind of like, I wonder if they're playing with that a little bit. Something that calls for blood and something that sets your eyes on fire has to be a reference to Lanfear and Ishamael.
Oh, yeah.
That was very specifically worded. That's not a stretch.
Who said that?
Ishamael says the following line. Hold on. You have something inside you, something that calls for blood.
Oh, yeah, blood
something
calls blood.
that sets your eyes on fire.
Yeah, no, I'd buy that. Yeah, that's good. That's fun.
Yeah. No, that's definitely what's happening. Those were such specifically worded.
Yeah, no, that's very specific.
Yeah, such specifically. Yeah, that's Lanfear and Ishamael right there. Perrin giving a kid a sword, huh? Aram vibes.
Perrin gives a kid a
Perrin made a sword for Elnor.
Oh, like a little wooden one, right?
Yeah, like a little one.
Oh, yeah, all right, yeah, sure.
Just a thought.
Sure.
Perrin with the sword giving.
Sure.
To kids.
Yeah, why not?
Whose parents are like, maybe you'll learn to use it.
Yeah, good pickup. That's good.
That's good. Matt bringing messages. Messenger Matt, like he does in the books.
Oh, in book 3?
Matt brings messages like more than one, or is sent on like retrieval or message sending often.
Oh, yeah, in book 6, yeah.
I just was like, go get Elaine, go send this message to my mother, go do this, go do that. It just reminded me of stuff in the books. I worry about the potential foreshadowing of Perrin dying twice in this scene. Once in the play fight with Elnor and once in the fight with the Trollocs when the axe hits him.
I think that's just I
think the play fighting was foreshadowing for what happens later.
Yeah.
But I was just like, man, Perrin dies like a
Perrin's
lot.
a bad time.
In this scene. And I was like, ugh, I hope that's not foreshadowing. But I have said for a while that I worry about Perrin dying. Because I don't think every Two Rivers kid comes back. Yeah. And so I could see a world in which that happens. Matt has a slice across his eye. Gus.
Does he?
It's the second time. In the scene, he has a slice across his eye. He had the same slice across his eye in episode 1 when Matt thought that he killed him.
I was not really paying attention to that, but I will take your word for it.
Gus.
Yes.
He has to lose half the light of the world to save the world. He's not going to lose an eye.
I don't know. Well, I know.
Go on.
I don't know.
I'm also worried about Lan getting killed because we've seen him in life-threatening wounds twice now, and Nynaeve is there to fix it. But what happens if she's not there?
That's a good question.
I'm worried about those things from a book reader perspective who hasn't read everything.
I don't really have anything else book-related to say.
I thought we had one more thing to talk about. I thought we skipped something.
Did I write it down? I like how often they're bringing up, I said I can't lie. I said I can't lie. I said I can't lie. As a reminder, I said I can lie.
But Leandrin has lied.
But that Leandrin can lie.
Several times now.
There's Trollocs in the north. It's the flicker test.
Oh, yeah, the flicker test.
This is definitely part of a parallel to Flicker. More heavily than, Because here's the thing, and obviously I'm not going to talk about anything later. There are a lot of different things in book 2 that are like, here are some visions of a future that could happen. And I appreciate that elements of Flicker appear to be incorporated into this, which is not to say that they're not incorporated into other things or that we don't have it. Waffo.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a world in which things will get moved around a bit,
Almost definitely.
Yeah, I think we covered everything. I mean,
our part 1 was robust as fuck. So I feel content. Pour one out for Uno.
Guy Roberts.
And
we love you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got a little bit of full books stuff to talk about. Not a ton, but a smidge. So, Allie, if you don't mind stepping out.
Get the fuck out.
And I'll do that. So if you haven't read the whole Wheel of Time book series, skedaddle.
An unidentified full series spoiler has been detected. If you have not read the entire Wheel of Time series, this is your signal to disengage.
What's up, everyone? It's just me today. Bree is under the weather, and hopefully we'll be feeling better so soon, because it sucks to be sick. Incidentally, Consort of Fire's out. That's Bree's book that Kit Rocha wrote. It's called Consort of Fire. It's also known as the Horny Dragon book. It's real good, and you should read it. Available at ebook retailers and some other retailers, possibly near you. Hey, I don't have a ton to talk about, but I do want to talk about how the fact that they basically did Nynaeve's Aes Sedai test outro with her accepted test, where she says to the sisters, like, fuck your shit, fuck your ring, fuck your tower, and fuck your code of conduct, fuck that, I am who I am, fuck you. And I think it's quite interesting that they had her do that early. I don't think that rules out more of that journey with her later, but I do think it will be different later if we do get the accepted test, the full raising test for Nynaeve later on. I also think we might not get that, because while I love it, there's going to be a lot of shit to cover in the very end of the series. But everybody I've watched or talked about this episode with who has watched it in proximity to Allie, which is a couple of different people, were like, and I had to physically restrain myself from saying, oh, wait, this is her Aes Sedai test. Oh, man. It's fun. That's really all I have. So, you know what? Thanks for being here, and I'll cut it over to the outro. Oh, yeah, the only other thing I'm going to say, actually, is I had said in the book spoiler section that Uno does nothing up until that point in Knife of Dreams. I love Uno as a character. From a plot perspective, he does not do anything after book 2-3. Alas. Pour one out. All right. For those of you who are still here, Allie's back.
Hi.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We have social media if you want to know what we have going on. It's linked below. We also have a Patreon if you want to support us that way. It's patreon.com/wheelfix, and you can always leave us a rating and a review, which helps a lot. Other than that, we started playing improv games in our Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes outro.
And you've really liked it,
and I've liked it. Do you want to do that again?
Like a Wheel of Time themed one?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the game called? I always forget what it's called that we did last time.
It's called Mind Meld.
Let's do Mind Meld, yeah?
Okay, yeah, hold on. Let me think of one this time. Okay, ready? Wait, basically, okay, the rules, for those of you who haven't listened.
We're going to count down. We're each going to say a word. And then the next time, we're going to do it again, and we're going to try to say the same word based on the first word we said. So if Allie, for instance, said camera, and I said light bulb, then the next time we might both try to say flash.
Yeah, and so we're trying to get to the same word.
Yeah.
Okay, ready?
All right. 3, 2, 1, accepted
land.
test. Oh, okay, great. 3, 2, 1,
2 rivers.
Oh,
Damn
for
it.
God's sake. What have we done?
Okay.
9 even 2 rivers? Oh, yeah, okay. 3, 2, 1, wisdom.
Damn it. Wisdom and braid. Okay.
3, 2, 1, river.
Women's circle.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait,
Yeah. Okay.
3, 2, 1,
initiation.
Damn
it.
Oh, my God. Okay. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, Aes Sedai.
Amerlin seat raising. God damn it.
Okay. Aes Sedai and Amerlin seat raising.
Okay.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, swan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.
Bye.